Out of the gates and ready to go. Glad you're with us. The Friday edition of Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow has arrived. Charlie Arnault still in studio.
I'm still here. You're stuck with me.
She came back. Withrow in New York. You're headed back to New York, right, for UFC 288
I'll be there,
tomorrow.
yes, tomorrow morning. I'll be back in the city, and then it's off to Newark, New Jersey for UFC 288.
God's country.
Yes,
God's
absolutely.
country.
The most beautiful city, probably in the United States,
I'll
depending who you ask.
Take your word for it. Hey, we got a great show. Yesterday's show flew by.
It did.
Right? 3 hours, jam-packed. Ben Lieber joins us in 20 minutes. One of the bigger storylines in the NFC, after you get past Philadelphia with what the Eagles have done, will be the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is on the final year of his deal. Aaron Rodgers is no longer in the division. And what happens with Dalvin Cook? We'll check in with the Minnesota news anchor, TV and radio analyst for the Vikings. That's coming up in 20 minutes. In hour number 2, we hit the big topic surrounding the NBA playoffs. All of a sudden, the Warriors took care of the Lakers. And tonight, Game 3 between Philadelphia and New York. We'll start there with Steve Ashburner, who will join us from NBA.com. He's in Philly covering that. And Guns, the Gun Show. Mike Gunzelman from OutKick.com always brings the energy. That'll be in hour number 3. How's Nashville? You enjoying it?
Nashville's great. I have a few concerns that I'd like to voice, and that is to those who find that they need to keep partying till 5:30 in the morning. I'm just joking. I actually respect each and every one of you. Good for you, having a great time in Nashville. Though getting into that grandma stage of my life, I was trying to get a good night's sleep, be prepared for you, be prepared for everyone who's here watching and listening. But, I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. I've had a cup of coffee. I've had a Diet Coke. I had a few tacos.
Okay.
Here at 6th and Peabody, which are delicious, so highly recommend those. And you know what else? The rain has held off. We were expecting rain, which, to the Swifties' dismay, I guess means bad luck.
They're going to be upset, right?
Yeah, they wanted rain, which we were all pretty confused about. But I guess, whatever it is.
I don't get it, but you said some people consider rain on a wedding day good luck.
Yeah,
I think
that's what the Swifties were saying. They wanted rain during Taylor Swift's concerts because for whatever reason, I guess it's a good omen. But I think it's a great omen that there's no rain because that's why my hair is up. I was expecting rain, but I could have worn it down and flowing.
It's happening, but it's not happening tonight like it was called for earlier in the week, which is great for Gary and Aaron, who I think are flying back to New York this evening. No bad weather, but bad traffic because all the Taylor Swift fans are coming into town. It's also crazy.
It's also interesting because as a weather person, you could be right or wrong, and you still get paid, and no one really faults you for anything because I think it said a 90% chance of rain today. 90%. That's almost 100, and yet there is no rain, and yet that person still has their job, I'm sure.
It's the forecast.
Yeah.
The forecast, just like a mock draft.
Exactly.
No one's going back to really grade these guys because it's all about the hype for the league and the build-up. Plenty of discussion and topics coming up, but to me, the betting scandal that's going on right now with Alabama and now their former head coach and Brad Bohannon. So over the last 24 hours, news has come out that he was, and they've tracked this, he was on the phone with a former high school baseball coach, one of the travel league coaches, again, former, who is at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, placing a large amount of money on the Alabama and LSU Game 1 of the series last Friday. And Brad Bohannon is reportedly on the phone with this former high school coach whose name has not been released while the decision is being made that they're going to make a pitching change. Their top player on the mound is replaced about 2 hours before the game with a guy who has not started for Alabama in over a month.
Right.
And LSU's the number 1 team in the country. The odds are heavily in their favor. But what caught the attention of BetMGM and other sports books in the state of Ohio, because it's taking place in Cincinnati while he's at Great American Ballpark, is, for the most part, the apps will cap the amount of money that you can place on your phone at $500 for the most part when it comes to college baseball.
Oh, okay.
But if you're placing that bet in person at a sports book and you're throwing down cash, you can bet significant more on that game. And what allegedly he did, this coach, is he placed a large amount, a considerable amount to flag this on behalf of the sports book on the money line, which was minus 275 or something prior to the news coming out because the head coach is on the phone with him.
Yeah.
And they also included the LSU and Bama game he did in a parlay. And, I mean, on the scale of stupidity.
Right. Biggest red flag.
Scale of stupidity on the phone where they can track this back to the head coach who's fired by Alabama and Greg Byrne, their athletic director. On top of that, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, New Jersey, they've all removed Alabama's, if you wanted to bet on Alabama baseball, by the way, they're in Nashville playing Vanderbilt, you can't in those states. And, I mean, the uncertainty level of moving forward, how far back did this go? Because keep in mind, just on the surface level, Tim Donaghy, former NBA ref, who was giving information and helping fix games in the NBA as a referee with a bookie, he did that for 2 years.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure this wasn't the first time.
Before he was actually caught. And he went to jail for 15 months because of that. Now, my guess is this guy, Bohannon.
And I imagine all of the money you made placing those illegal bets, probably you have to turn over to law enforcement, whomever.
There's no like federal regulation for insider. No, it's not like insider trading, right, on the stock market. But if you're in on it and you're actually fixing games,
yeah,
that's a different story because that's what Donaghy was doing. So I don't know where they come down on this guy, this high school coach, getting this information and placing a bet. But they absolutely are cracking down on Bohannon because he could affect the game anytime he wanted to. But, I mean, the idiot's using his phone.
Well, right, but not anymore because he likely will never coach another baseball game in his life.
Yeah, but you have to think, like, how far back did this go? And, oh, by the way, the irony that this happens at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, the Reds' all-time great player is Pete Rose. And it comes down to a college baseball betting scandal at the top of the Division I level against the #1 team in the country in LSU. Reports are also that the players have nothing to do with this whatsoever. But when you have the manager or the head coach on the phone as the decision's being made for a pitching change, well, I wonder how much this went on. And my guess is this investigation is going much deeper than just some surveillance video where they can connect the two.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also, I guess you made the point that you have to use an in-person bookie to place those larger bets. Otherwise, probably could. Do you think easier chance to go get below the radar, right? If you would have placed.
Oh, I don't think it's noticeable if it's a $500
and couldn't
deal.
you have just spread it out a little more? I mean, I'm not trying to encourage anybody, but hey, you place this bet, you do this, and then just have people stacking them up all over the place, and then they all hit, and there you go. There's.
I mean,
there I've come up with the solution.
And they can track him on the apps, right? If you want to know how much he's bet on Bama or bet against Bama in this case. And the other little fact with this is LSU got out to an 8-1 lead, and Bama nearly came back and won that game.
Right.
And if that happened, does this even get flagged? Because it wasn't flagged until after the bet was won.
Exactly. Well, probably not, right?
Yeah, I doubt it because the sports book wouldn't think twice about winning a wager like that.
Yeah.
Especially with the big upset that Bama would have had. But again, head coach on the phone, they can prove it. All of this is just crazy. And the fact that they did it this fast, this is happening.
Oh, I'm sure
this is happening. And it goes beyond just college baseball.
The agencies that are keeping an eye out for sports betting because it has gotten so big. I mean, gambling has just completely taken over the sports world. I feel like there's probably so many people, like they have in casinos. I mean, I'm not super privy to all of like the ins and outs of casinos. I'm a horrible gambler. Do not give me your money. I will lose it instantly. But they have all of the people that are walking through, and there's pawns and people at the tables and watching for people counting cards and all of that type of thing. It's very interesting.
And I mean, the phone records, again, like I honestly am reading through this and thinking, how is this? How it was college baseball. That's why it was flagged, right?
Right, because who really bets on college
How
baseball
much
like that,
of
right?
this? Yeah, exactly. So how much of this is going on at the major level, the major college level?
Oh, it's going on.
Where it just goes completely unnoticed because of how much people are wagering on college football, and the fact that it's not going to ping at BetMGM is where this took place to the same level it will at a college baseball level where you can't even bet on the run line. You can only bet on the money line.
Right. It's much more limited.
Also limited the first pitch options that took place for the Red Sox, Charlie.
Yeah, the first pitch is something I feel like as baseball fans or even non-baseball fans, right?
Have you done this?
I've never been a first pitch.
Okay.
And one reason being is because I feel like I could potentially fare the same way Olivia Picardo did, who all of you aren't familiar with who that is. She is Brown's first ever, or she is the first on Brown's behalf. She's the first ever D1 baseball player. So she was picked to throw the first pitch out at the game this week, and she missed horribly. She was several feet right of home plate, and so it was a big gaffe. Obviously, she was probably pretty embarrassed, and I'm not knocking her for that because, like I said, I am not one to say that I would have done much better in her position, though I have to say, prior to arriving at Brown, Picardo was known for making the roster on the 2022 USA Baseball Women's National Team as a right-handed pitcher and outfielder. So maybe her skills should have been a little bit more up to par, but here we are. Story, though, is the fact that Nesson New England Sports Network, decided to shut down the comment section on their Twitter page when they posted the video of her making this horrible pitch. And it begs the question, why? Why would you shut down the comment section? Because roasting these first pitch people is just part of the game.
Yeah,
it's
Gary
part of the
Dell'Abate didn't
Remember
get that.
50 Cent, how horrible he was?
Oh, yeah.
And no one shut down the comment section for him. So why are we shutting it down for a woman? Because I think while us women a lot of us are making the argument that, we are deserving of our own space. We want to stand up for ourselves, save women's sports. On the other hand, we should also be able to take a joke. We should also be able to be the same as men in the sense that we don't need to shut down the comment section. We can take it. We're strong. Let us go. So what do you think about this?
She made a huge error by throwing as hard as she did.
Yeah.
She went with the fastball.
But she's a pitcher.
I know.
Why wouldn't she? Why wouldn't you want to show off?
Went with the fastball, and you can't take that back. It was just a bit outside there.
Just a bit.
If you just lob it in, you've got it over the plate. The catcher's got it. The bullpen catchers.
But how sweet would it have been if she
throws
did
right
a
down the middle
fastball and it was just
well,
perfect?
Not everyone's George
Respect.
W. Bush after 9/11. You know what I mean? Like right down the middle, perfect pitch at Yankee Stadium. I have done the first pitch. I did get it to the
Where?
I went
Where did
to
you
the
do
mound
the first pitch?
At we did two first pitch at two different minor league parks.
Okay.
Here in the area, and
wow,
I threw a strike, caught the corner with the right. It was more Greg Maddox. I got it would have been a ball, but I got the call right. The catcher helped me out, and he framed it perfectly. But I didn't go as hard as I could at the county fair trying to impress the girlfriend back in high school. And that she's rearing back, and I'm sure she's warmed up, in the clubhouse somewhere. But that was the issue. If you haven't seen the video, she tries to throw as hard as possible, and it's the nerves are high.
But I'm sure she would have been fine. I hope. She is a student at Brown, so we do have to point out that.
And she's a D1 player.
Yeah, but I just feel like she could take it, and if she couldn't, then you shouldn't be out there throwing the first pitch. That's what I got to say, right?
Well, and honestly, she had no say over if it was taken down or not.
Yeah,
they just
absolutely.
assumed.
Yeah,
they just assumed there.
So I don't like that. I feel like that's just kind of Nesson making a stand that women aren't tough enough to absorb the comments that are put out into the universe by other people, and we are. We can take it. Believe me. We are thick-skinned, so I hope next time Nesson reconsiders removing the comment section.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yes, and you're never going to see a highlight of a good first pitch, unless it's George W.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I think a lot of seeing the bad pitch, it's just it's a good pitch. Like Conor McGregor, horrible, but it makes you, you know, a little more endeared to him. You're like, okay, you're great inside the octagon, horrible on the mound. 50 Cent, you're great rapping some bars, horrible on the mound,
Yes,
right?
I agree.
We all have our strengths.
And the comment sections are open.
Yeah.
Open.
Yeah.
Mike Budenholzer, now former head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, 2 years removed from winning the NBA title with Giannis. And they're the 1 seed. They fall to the 8 seed Miami. Giannis last week is saying it's not a failure, and he's going through the reasons why, which explains why Giannis is not viewed in the same category as a LeBron or a Durant or a Steph Curry, because, you know, he's trying to explain why not becoming the 6th team in the history of the NBA to lose to an 8 seed as a 1 seed in round 1 isn't somehow a failure for that year. Chad and I agree, it absolutely was. But consider that Budenholzer, his brother had died right before Game 4 of what ended up being a 5-game series in a car accident. And nothing came out from the Bucks on this until after the series. And 2 years after winning a title, he joins Nick Nurse, who won an NBA title in 2019 with Toronto. He's fired this year. Frank Vogel, who won the NBA title with the Lakers in 2020. He was fired last season. And now Budenholzer, who won the title in 2021, fired yesterday. And, I mean, the current coaches who continue to win titles, Steve Kerr's the recurring guy who gets, 2 years off or whatever and then goes back and wins the next title. But, I mean, it is amazing to me how teams, organizations, and especially college football is a great example at the highest level of how fans and athletic departments, and in this case, front offices will eat their own. Solid head coach.
There's got to be a scapegoat, it seems, in every sense of why things didn't play out the way they did. Although, I mean, it's easy to pinpoint. It just, the team fell apart. They didn't play well. And
at all.
And also, you do have to be very understanding of the fact that now we realize, which it should have been released sooner, that his brother was killed tragically in a car accident. I mean, how would that not affect somebody? That it just, there in no world would that be something that someone would be able to just quickly rebound from and it not affect the way that they are able to go about their life and do their job. So I wish we knew about that sooner. And I also think that when you look at Budenholzer's record overall, he's just the 4th coach in the past 50 seasons to lead his team to the best record in the NBA and then not return the following season.
Yeah.
So there's
won
a lot
70% of his games.
Yeah, and I think there's very few coaches who would be able to put up numbers like that and work with a team like the Bucks, who, it's not like they have a stacked roster from top to bottom. There's a few key players they're working with, and I think he did a great job at molding them and helping them become a really collective unit. And
there's a story behind, there has to be, because whenever they won the title, immediately after, Budenholzer and Giannis were talking about running it back. And then Giannis signs the mega contract to stay in Milwaukee instead of taking, the LeBron approach and going and forming some mega team elsewhere. He wanted to do it in the market that he was originally drafted to. And he did it with Budenholzer. He signed back with him. And now 2 years later, Giannis is saying, hey, series wasn't a failure even though we lost in 5 games to the 8 seed. And meanwhile, the head coach is fired immediately following that presser.
Do you think Giannis had anything to do with it?
I don't know how they don't go to Giannis before they make this move.
To.
They absolutely have to. And, yeah, I mean, the superstars run the league.
Absolutely.
The top players run the league in the NBA. There's very few coaches that have the type of pull like Kerr or Popovich and others. And Budenholzer and Giannis would be that type of relationship. Yeah. Not in this case.
So who do you think? You think Nick Nurse is
rumor
in Milwaukee?
The rumor is they're going to, it would be perfect if Nick Nurse and Budenholzer just swap jobs.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get hired again.
Yeah, of course.
But, yeah, Nurse is another example, though. A good coach who's going to end up with a good organization, and we'll see him coaching deep into the playoffs again. How deep can the Minnesota Vikings go in the NFC, considering that Rodgers is out of the division now in the NFC North? The team climbing the ladder is Detroit, and Chicago is trying to build around their young quarterback. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins is going into the final year of his deal. Dalvin Cook is not the focus of that offense anymore, and they've just gotten even better with their wide receiving core. We'll ask Ben Lieber all of this and more, considering the news that Rodgers is now in New York. That's straight ahead on Hot Mic.
My primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number one pet peeve, telemarketers. Number two pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number three pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number four pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that.
I believe in it.
Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Charlie Arnault in studio for Chad Withrow. Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. If you're watching on YouTube, hope you'll hit that subscribe button and like,
push it,
share, join us in the chat, and much more. You can also check out the stream at OutKick.com. You can check out Ben Lieber, Minnesota Vikings radio and TV analyst, who joins us now. Ben, great to have you on, man, and thanks for the time. And what's going to be a very interesting NFC North, considering Aaron Rodgers is now in the AFC and Kirk Cousins is in the final year of his deal. And it's the Detroit Lions all of a sudden that are the hot team.
I know. Well, first of all, it's great to be on with you two. Yeah, man, that seems to be the sexy thing to talk about is how well the Detroit Lions did last year, how they closed out the season last year, how well they've done in the free agency and the draft process, and they seem to have the right chemistry going. And I'm fine with that. You know, if that's going to like take all the attention away from how the Vikings sort of finish the season and how much work that the Vikings have to do on defense and all this other stuff. There are some issues. We all understand that. But look, the Vikings or the Lions have been in the basement of the NFC for a long time. So I'm fine if they're going to get some love.
Justin Jefferson, one of the top players in the NFL, period. Now Addison is there. And the expectations whenever O'Connell came in is, hey, we're no longer a run-first offense. It's pass-first offense. How has that changed the perception of where the Vikings can go, given the fact that they have the head coach with the background and pedigree to actually do some more things with this passing offense?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because it's my opinion that this offense is actually going to look a little bit different than it did last year. You know, time and time again, I would ask, I was able to interview Coach O'Connell after every game for KFAN radio as a sideline reporter. That's my job on Sundays. And a lot of times we're asking about the inability and the ineffectiveness of the run game. And sometimes it was just not enough touches and not enough carries. And he would say, yep, that kind of got away from me. You know, we need to run the ball a little bit more. We're going to evaluate that. And that happened several times throughout the course of the year. I actually think with the signing of Josh Oliver in free agency from Baltimore, I think you're going to see a different looking offense. It's still going to be predominantly a passing game, but I think that we're going to see a lot more big personnel. They re-signed CJ Ham, the fullback. If that was the direction that you thought they were going to go, I don't think that you sign on the best blocking tight end in free agency. I don't think that you re-sign your fullback that's been on the team for the last 7-8 years. I think this offense under KOC, as he got to evaluate it after 1 year, I think you're going to see a lot more big tight ends, big sets, run the football, set up the play action. Yeah, at the end of the day, it still might be 60% pass, but I think he wants to get into a mode where he wants to control the ball a little bit more and get more downhill and punch you in the mouth.
So does that include Dalvin Cook? I mean, the time to trade him would have been last weekend, right?
Yeah, I still think, and I kind of agree with most of the public around here that, as much as we love Dalvin and he's an incredible runner, his contract is just it's a big hit. And, I don't foresee him being on the opening day roster. I don't know when the deal would get done. I don't know how it's going to get done. I don't know if they're just going to have to straight up release the guy, but they re-signed Alexander Madison, at a decent contract.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Alexander signs that contract unless there's some sort of communication with them internally of like, hey, how are you going to use me? What are my touches going to look like? What percentage of the offense am I going to be a part of? I think once those conversations were had and he was happy, he signed the contract. So it leads me to believe that he's going to be a little bit more of the bell cow, get more touches, which means, not enough for Dalvin and certainly not enough to justify his contract.
Where do you think he'll go if he's not staying with Minnesota?
I think there was the rumors with, before the draft, it was, does Buffalo take a sniff at him? Does he get paired up with his brother? The Miami Dolphins obviously are still, I think, pretty strong contenders. I think the issue becomes if you're not going to make a trade during the draft, the whole league knows that you don't want to carry that contract. So I think a lot of people are just going to wait around possibly and just see if you can get him off the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. A lot of the teams that needed running back, I think, addressed those needs during the draft.
Ben Lieber with us, radio and TV analyst for the Minnesota Vikings there in Minnesota and Minneapolis. So, AFC quarterbacks stacked. Rodgers now there as well. When you start to look through the quarterbacks of the NFC, we know where Jalen Hurts is at the top of the NFC right now. Where's Kirk Cousins on this list?
Oh, I think I think that he's a top 10 quarterback in the league. I mean, between both conferences. And, look, I think it's really interesting that people will have two different opinions.
We looked at each other on that one.
I know you did. And I get it. I'm a Kirk fan. I think that he's gone out and proven himself. Everybody said when he got to the Vikings that he was not clutch, could not win in prime time, could not win in the fourth quarter. These last couple of years, he's proven everybody wrong. I think he had eight come from behind victories in the fourth quarter. At least he put the team with game-winning drives. It's the defense the last 2 years that has really fallen apart and let this team down. 31st in total defense last year, not good enough. I don't care how good of a quarterback you have. I think he's good enough to win for this team. I think he's good enough to win the Super Bowl. And here's the point that I want to make. When everybody was talking about Kirk possibly being traded to the San Francisco 49ers, what did a lot of the country say when that was being floated around? Wow, this automatically makes the 49ers a top contender to win the Super Bowl. Why? If you hated Kirk Cousins and you said that he doesn't have the championship intangibles to win with the Vikings, why do you think that he has a championship intangibles to win with the 49ers? You can't have it both ways. I think people are out there just to hate on Kirk, just to hate on him, just because they think it's kind of fun and it's a fun thing to do. But he's run the ball a little bit more. His pocket awareness has gotten better. He's one of the most durable quarterbacks in the league. And I'm telling you right now, he can make every single throw. Every game that you watch Kirk Cousins, there's going to be a throw or two that you say, wow, that was a big boy throw. And I think if you add it all up, he absolutely has the chops to win a championship.
Well, in the final year of his deal, though, Ben, are we headed down the same path that we just saw him go through in Washington? Or, where it's a tag and he's got to prove it again? Or is it more than that if he repeats what he did a year ago?
Well, he just had a great press conference the other day, and he addressed that. And he said, look, I didn't have any offers going into my senior year of high school. I got out of that my senior year of football, and I still didn't have any offers. And then Michigan State came in later on. And so he's like, look, I've had to deal with this sort of prove it and earn it mentality. And he mentioned the word earn it several times in this press conference. And he's like, I'm just like all these other guys on this team. I have to go out and earn and prove year over year that I deserve these contracts and I deserve to be the leader of this team. And, I think when he says it, he truly believes it. I don't think it's just, company line, coach speak stuff. I really think that he's going to go out there with mentality to earn it. And whether or not he earns another contract with the Vikings, we'll have to see. But I think he's ready to embrace this one-year deal that he has with the Vikings, and we'll see how it works out at the end of the season.
Well, he's already made it clear he wants to retire as a Minnesota Viking, but then I would ask you, Ben, what would the plan be for rookie quarterback Jaren Hall long-term?
I personally don't think that Jaren is brought in to supplant him or to be the franchise quarterback. I think you always just want to increase competition, and maybe there's a chance that you find a little something in there that makes you believe he can be a franchise quarterback. I think right now he's good enough to compete with Nick Mullins for that number 2 spot, and then after that, gets a year or two under his belt, and we'll see what happens. But whether or not you believe in the S2 cognitive test, he scored off the charts with that. He's an older kid, as a lot of guys are from BYU, so I think he's very mature. He's one of the best deep ball throwers in all of college football last year. So, this is an offense that does want to play action and get the ball deep. So he has a lot of the things that they're looking for, and he's mobile, and he can run a lot of the bootlegs and play action. So I don't know, man. Maybe he is one of those guys that like Brock Purdy that you find late in the draft that may surprise you, and he goes out and earns the opportunity to be the franchise guy.
Ben, we've never seen a wide receiver win the MVP award, and with the quarterback chase, we're likely not going to, unless we see a wide receiver get 2,000 yards for the first time in NFL history. Is Justin Jefferson capable of that? I think we know he is. And if he is, how much will he have in support of that award?
Well, he'd have a ton of support. I just think that last year was probably his best year to do that based on the number of targets and catches. If I'm gonna believe what I just mentioned to you guys, that this is gonna be a little bit more of
Yeah.
a running emphasis compared to last year, I just don't think he's gonna have enough targets. And you look at the way Hawkinson came on last year after the trade, he took a bulk of those possession down targets and those catches. And I just think unless he has just these huge games with these huge, averages of yards after catch or something like that, I just don't think that he's going to get to 2,000 yards. I mean, there's going to be limited opportunity. I think the way this offense is going to be built this year.
Did I see where the last time I was at the stadium there was 2020? State-of-the-art facility. Did I see where there's over $200 million worth of upgrades that they're asking for already?
Yeah.
What are they?
I don't know.
Why?
The deal is, man, it's kind of sad because you see this huge, beautiful facility. Even when
Didn't
it got built,
they just do a lot of upgrades a few years ago before the Super Bowl?
Brand new.
Yeah. So
they did.
I know. Where's all this money coming from?
Well, look, I'm going to take a guess. I think they've been kind of secretive about where this money is going to go to some of these upgrades. I think a lot of it is just maintenance. That the beautiful black matte finish they have on there, those are just like big pieces of siding material. And I think even before the first game started, that was falling off the building.
Goodness.
And falling onto the ground. And thankfully, it wasn't being used in the capacity that it is now with like concerts and all this other stuff. So nobody got injured, but they've been having to like piece those things back together a lot over the last couple of years. So I'm guessing a lot of it has to do with the exterior and just holding it in place.
Well, I'm sure the weather doesn't, when you're getting so much snow and rain and it's wet and you use the salt to melt the snow, it probably does some damage to the exterior of those buildings and the finishings on whatever the structures are that you're referring to.
Yeah, it's been a brutal winter just this last winter we've had. I honestly don't even know how anything stays together here in Minnesota. I mean, I don't know what our buildings are made out of because it is freezing cold. We have a lot of snow. We had a top 5 snowiest winter this last year.
Lucky you.
So I know. I don't even know. That's certainly not a badge of honor. I don't even know why I really have to say that, but just let you know that we had a lot of snow. We had to endure a lot this year.
But you do have some badges of honors. I mean, you had some nice playing days at K-State under Bill Snyder, who we all know takes a really hard stance on transfers. So what do you think Bill's reaction would be to all the transfers taking place today and also the NIL era that we are currently in?
I think he'd be reluctant to do it, but I think he would eventually do it. I think that when he took his little 3-year hiatus and Ron Prince came in, I think he had a lot of time to reflect on what he'd do differently. And I think, from the way I understand it, when he came back, he was much more flexible with just, I think, player rights, player movements. It wasn't just like do as I say without asking questions. I think he was answering all the questions as to like why we're doing things that the young generation wants to know. And that's totally fine. I think that he would probably shake his head at what Deion Sanders is doing in Colorado. I mean, me personally, I think it's fine if you want to refresh, but the phrasing and the way that he's gone about it has been completely disrespectful to the guys that were there. And the way he's intentionally running guys off with just this callous demeanor, I think that eventually that sort of attitude is going to come back and bite him. I know everybody loves it. They sold out the stadium for the spring game. It's the fun, shiny new toy, but I think he's got to work on the way he sort of models that foundation of how they treat players there, and the way that he deals with them. I certainly don't think, I as a college player would not have appreciated the way that he spoke to those players, and maybe that's just a little bit of Bill Snyder rubbing off on me.
A little bit old school.
Ben, great stuff, man. Thank you as always, especially up against the start of your show there. So we appreciate you, and we'll certainly be chatting soon over the off season as things crank up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. We'll look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Same here. Ben Lever there in Minnesota, great radio host and also a part of the broadcast on game days for the Vikings. How long have you been with UFC broadcasts, Charlie?
I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary here in a few months. Yeah.
Okay.
So, just doing a little pre-anniversary celebration at UFC 288 on
This week,
Saturday
yes.
in lovely Newark. But I am excited. I mean, what a headlining fight that we have. Main event, Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo. And really from a narrative standpoint, I mean, the winner of this one could easily move into the discussion of being known as one of the greatest UFC bantamweights of all time. So I'm looking forward to this one. I also think there's a lot of, I like the smack talking that's been going on ahead of, that's always one of the intriguing points to me in the UFC, when you get to really see the personality and the character of these fighters. And Aljamain Sterling, I can say, from meeting a few times, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Henry Cejudo, also, I think is a nice guy, but rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And I hear you're one of those that he rubs the wrong way.
Annoying. He can talk himself into a fight, though. That's the thing I love about UFC. You can talk your way into a title fight. You can jump the line.
Yeah.
If you can create the headline.
I mean, he goes from being retired to suddenly he's fighting for the title. And if he wins, who knows what's next for him?
Yeah, more annoying press conferences. Coming up, though, I do want to dive in because you're headed to 288 tomorrow.
Yes.
In Newark. But beyond that, there are some mega fights. McGregor and Chandler. John Jones, who's going to fight this fall, I believe. That's the plan. And the rumors are he's retiring after the Miocic fight. I'm curious to get your take on all this. Straight ahead, that's next. We'll get Charlie's take on the UFC and the calendar ahead with the storylines.
There's your guy.
Here on Hot Mic.
You know what? Sometimes as we begin tonight's epic series of icon Steph Curry against icon LeBron James with street clothes Anthony Davis, we sometimes forget that Steph Curry is in the conversation of greatest of all time. We usually do. We forget that. We just kind of take him for granted, I think, and we shouldn't. This dude just dropped 50 in a playoff Game 7. First time that has ever happened. And I want you to think about this for just a second. First time that has ever happened in the NBA in a Game 7. Now, with all due respect, there's a lot of great basketball players in and around the NBA, a lot of great scorers over the years, a lot of iconic players like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'm talking about scorers now. Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, hell, Alex English, George Gervin. I mean, dudes that back in the day, David Thompson used to go get 60 occasionally. And not one guy ever, not ever, scored 50 in a Game 7 until Steph Curry came along. It's really unbelievable. He's 35 years old. You've never heard anything out of Steph Curry other than family and team and humble and willing to help. I think it's time we give him at least a little more accolades for everything around him. All right, stock up, LeBron James. Now, LeBron James is one of those guys that's trying hard. He wants to be more than he wants to be, or more than an athlete, and that's great. And by all accounts, very good as an executive producer. His team, led by Maverick Carter, his guys, posse, whatever you want to call it, from his hometown, do a great job. He's had some missteps. The fake racial stuff on his walls in L.A. was ridiculous, and he's made some stupid racial comments. But you know what? He's out here trying. He's out here taking a swing. Seems to love his kids and his wife. Although there is some speculation, as there always is going to be. But this dude, at his age, is ridiculous. And what he does on a nightly basis is absolutely absurd. And sometimes all we do is complain about LeBron James because, well, frankly, we get LeBron James stuffed down our throats every single day. It's called, in the world of ESPN and others, playing the hits. Used to be you had to talk about Brett Favre and LeBron James. Now you got to talk about Aaron Rodgers and LeBron James, or else you don't have a show. Throw in a little bit of Mark Cuban, throw in Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, and you've got 6 morning hours of ESPN television. That's just the way it works. We're enthralled. LeBron James, 38 years old, man, and he's still out here doing it. I feel like I've been watching LeBron James, if he's 38, for 23 years, since he's about 15 years old. He's done it under the world spotlight, and he's done it really, really well. 4 titles for him, 4 titles for Curry. Look, if one of them gets one this year, that puts him above the other, in my opinion. Nobody ever thinks that. We always compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James, but it might be time to start comparing Steph Curry to LeBron James. That's how good Steph Curry is.
Charlie Arnault, what is it like working for Dana White?
It's awesome. Honestly, he's one of those people when you think of how would you configure a perfect boss?
Yes.
He's one of them. He just is so supportive. He stands behind everything he does. He is fearless in what he says and does, and he doesn't apologize to anybody, which I respect, right? If you have strong conviction, I can respect that. So, yeah, he's great in what he's built. I mean, the UFC is blowing up. It's like every weekend we have massive fights. You know, we have pay-per-views every month, but even aside from that, every single weekend there's something to look forward to in the UFC.
Well, and they're going to get out. They've been out back on the road now, but they're going to get out more, right, than just the UFC Performance Center in Vegas for fight nights.
There's some. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say yet. I think some have been announced, but there's some shows that are going international. They're going around the country, as you've seen. As recently, remember they were just in Miami a few weeks ago. You know.
And I love the fact that he's paying back Jacksonville.
Yeah.
They were the first, I believe, building that opened up for him after COVID or during the COVID lockdown.
Yes, Jacksonville was very good to the UFC.
And he said at the presser, he's like, I'm going to come back here more often.
Yeah.
Because of the mayor and the governor.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to make sure I take care of these guys.
Yeah, props to Florida.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It was Florida and what was the other state? Arizona? No, Texas, I think, were the two.
Yeah, those were the best states to really. But and you see, and look what happened. Both the states are just being swarmed by people who have had enough of living in New York and California, and now those two places, it's hard to buy property for, you know, a third of what it was years ago.
How big of a pay-per-view will Saturday be?
It's going to be huge.
Aljo and Cejudo.
Yeah, this is you talk about returning to certain cities, and New York hasn't seen a pay-per-view event in a long time, and this is a place that actually suits Aljamain Sterling, the champion, who will be fighting Henry Cejudo. They're both competing for the bantamweight championship on Saturday night because he actually has a 9-0 mark in the state of New Jersey. So
Interesting.
if we are following history, looks like he might be getting a win. I guess that depends who you ask, but I think
hope so,
asking
man.
you don't want Henry Cejudo to win.
Yeah, I mean, so Colby Covington's playing a character too, but he's an entertaining character, right?
Yes.
Like with Cejudo, it's just annoying, and
He's like a little pest.
Yeah, and but it's just like not even dad joke level. Like it's just on purpose, really bad dad joke level, and you can't really fit that. To me, the UFC trash talk model doing that.
Yeah, there's only so many people, I think, also that when you hear them trash talking, you believe them. Henry Cejudo,
yeah.
almost you're like, okay, we get it. You know, you're like you said, trying to play the part, but we don't believe you, right? Conor McGregor, we can believe, we can get
No
behind.
doubt, yeah.
Colby Covington, we can get behind. I mean, he is, he plays it very well. But Henry Cejudo, not so much. And even guys like Israel Adesanya, who holds a lot of respect in the UFC, he can't stand the way Henry Cejudo conducts himself. So for that being one reason, he's pulling for Aljamain Sterling. But he also thinks Aljamain Sterling just, being the he's the taller fighter, just his all-around fight game, probably is going to be coming out with the win. But it is going to be interesting to see who controls this fight, I believe.
All right, so maybe the things aren't locked in stone. Best guess, though, McGregor and Chandler will take place when?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, it's all about when Conor clears all the USADA protocols, which as of right now, he hasn't even started making a dent in those. I think he needs
6 months or something?
Yeah, and like a couple clean tests to really be able to book the fight. So I think fall is probably the earliest we'd be looking at, but it could even be sometime in the winter. But I don't think Conor is necessarily in any particular rush. He wants to make sure he's in the best position himself. And also, we know that their upcoming season of The Ultimate Fighter, it's really being released in just a few weeks from now. So that'll be fun to really get a first glimpse at the rivalry that's going to be taking place between McGregor and Chandler.
How do they keep those results private?
They just have very trustworthy people.
Because it's already filmed,
Yeah,
right?
it's already done. It's in the books. I was actually out in Vegas for the slap fighting when they launched that first season. I was a big part of that. I still will be a big part of that moving forward, which that's also a blast to be working with. But yeah, they were in and out of the building all the time, so that's wrapped up. So yeah, as far as who came out on top of that, that's something that I actually have no insight into, but someone does.
So I started watching UFC, it was like 2013, 2014, and I got hooked on the promos for Cormier and John Jones 1.
Yes.
And I bought the pay-per-view.
Okay.
And then from there...
How much did the pay-per-view cost back then?
It was $65 now.
And what's it now?
Now it's what? It's over $90.
Okay, because I have
ESPN Plus.
yeah. Okay, so I have a subscription, so I don't have to. I get hooked up
Well,
because of what I do.
And it's difficult now for bars to even have them because it's based on capacity.
Which I didn't realize that was a thing when you
screen.
had mentioned that maybe hosting a UFC fight here, and I didn't realize it had. I thought you just would purchase it like a normal person. You could show it to the whole
it's
bar.
thousands of dollars, right? Where you
Wow.
have to pay an entry fee, and they don't want to. Most bars don't want to do that if you're just going to have the watch party, right?
Right.
I wish they could come down on that price a little bit. But John Jones now he's up at heavyweight. Is that going to be in the summer or the fall?
I think they are hoping to book that at Madison Square Garden in November, which
That's
would be
perfect.
huge, a perfect stage, right?
Yep.
The interesting question, though, is whether or not that'll be John Jones's last fight.
Yeah, but he's contemplating. He's hinted at this.
He's contemplated, and it would make sense because I think one of the big reasons he came back at heavyweight, it was a new challenge, right? I want to see if I can what I can accomplish here, and it was so easy for him, right? Everyone, even Dana White, I think, was astonished because we all know how powerful he is, but I don't think anyone would have guessed it would have been that simple for him to get a win in his first time at his heavyweight.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the question is, what does this fight against Stipe Miocic look like? If it's just as easy, I think it's going to be easy for him to make the decision to walk away. If it's a bit more of a challenge, maybe he contemplates, okay, let's give it another run. But I think that's going to be a big factor as to whether or not he decides to retire.
And he needs the right opponent again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Sergey Pavlovich, very well.
He just recently won.
He just recently won against Curtis Blades a couple weeks ago. I was covering that fight, and he has already said he's looking forward to taking on John Jones should that opportunity present itself. And, that could be a good one. I'd love to see John Jones stick around. He draws a lot of crowds. He's a fun person to watch, and I don't want him to end things this early on.
Dana White gets it done, and in a sport where he can try to book things out in advance, but he doesn't control results.
No, he does not.
And that's the difference between now the merger between them and WWE. Coming up, Senator Tommy Tuberville roasted Megan Rapinoe.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here, Friday edition, Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. People are out here partying. Cinco de Mayo, Taylor Swift's in town.
I mean,
it's just a Friday.
It's a weekday. Weekend's here. We're going to make sure that you get to your weekend faster over the next couple of hours. Looking forward to discussions coming up. We've got Mike Gunzelman from OutKick.com, who brings.
Wait, when you first said that, I was like, oh, we do?
Gun show. I should clarify. Thank you, Charlie. Brings the energy. He'll be with us in about an hour and a half from now. And in about 20 minutes or so, Steve Ashburner will join us from NBA.com. He's in Philadelphia for Game 3 this evening, as we will see the 76ers and the Celtics in what's been a really good series. Charlie Arnold in for Chad Withrow, who will be back with us on Monday. He returns from New York, and Charlie's headed back to New York for work over the weekend, and then back at it, of course, next week. Tommy Tuberville, I mean, he is known for getting after it. Head coach at Auburn, Cincinnati, among other stops. And last time he joined us, he was like, Senator Tuberville, he goes, please call me coach. And
I love that.
Back in SEC country. And great guy. And he agrees with us. And I'm curious to get your take on Megan Rapinoe and where it falls in line with Senator Tuberville's comments.
You know, if the Rapone girl is just talking about where she's retired now out of soccer, and she was a pretty average player, but she was an activist, and this mainstream media gave her a loudspeaker to voice her opinion, and that's fine. But the problem is, if she's voicing now her opinion that, hey, trans boys should be able to compete against women. Well, if that would have happened during her career, she'd have been working at Safeway or Piggly Wiggly. She would have never got on the field. But now that she's retired, oh yeah, I'm all for this. And that's the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard. You know, they stand up supposedly for all this activist stuff, but they don't stand up for what's right. What's right in this country. It's just the main point about this is it's not fair. It's not fair to girls to know that they're going to be playing for second or third. You know, this Leah Thomas says, well, she beat Riley Gaines and everything is working out fine. You know, nobody should complain. Riley Gaines is 5'7". Leah Thomas was 6'4". You think that's fair? They're out of their mind. I mean, but the whole country right now is just going nuts.
Senator Tuberville there on Crane and Company with the Daily Wire making those comments. And Megan Rapinoe, not technically retired. She's in the NWSL currently. Playing for the Reign, I believe, but nonetheless on the back end of a career, and is certainly on the opposite end of what we discussed yesterday with Riley Gaines, and Riley brought her up in conversation.
It's unbelievable.
For someone who has promoted and stood up for women's rights over the years, for Rapinoe to then turn around and state that, transgender boys should be playing if they want to with women's teams is ridiculous. Charlie, where do you come down on this, and what do you make of what?
I come down on it the exact same stance that you just came down on it, that the exact same stance that Senator Tuberville or Coach came down on it. I think it's ridiculous that Megan Rapinoe, who was championing women and their ability to be equals to men and have their own space and have equal pay and everything. She was always at the forefront of all of these discussions as it pertained to women and their rights to be equals. And now suddenly, now that she has stepped away from actively playing, in terms of, she's still, in a sense, the NWSL playing in that. But it's just interesting that, why weren't you saying that biological men should have the right to play when it was your spot on the Olympic team that could have been up for grabs? Why are you now just talking about this? It just seems very strange. I have to wonder what the incentive for her is, because on one hand, she really pushes for women's rights, but she's also a big advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, which I understand. So it's like, is there something that's getting in the way of the other, and why? Because at the core, you're still a woman, and you're giving up a lot of opportunities for women in the coming generations should this pass, and also the success that they fought so hard for, that you fought for women. It just, none of it makes sense. And I agree that I think that if this were to have gone into play when she was still really fighting for her career to pick up success, she would not be in this position. Maybe she wouldn't necessarily be working at the Piggly Wiggly, but she would not be an Olympic soccer player, probably.
Well, and the idea, I mean, what we didn't hear there from the senator and what we haven't said is anything that's transphobic. And that's now the line of talk.
It's the buzzword.
And criminal is the other thing. It should be a crime if you're against this, that you don't believe that they should be allowed to play against women.
And also, I think
that's not. We're talking about just simply fairness of this. And I think that's where the discussion really gets off course when you start the debate of, they want to identify as a man or a woman as a biological opposite. That's not where the conversation is, even with Senator Tuberville. He's just saying, like, no, you shouldn't be playing against women as a biological
No,
man.
I mean, there's so many advantages, and people can say all they want of, oh, no, there's some women that are really fast and strong. And, okay, sure, maybe there's one in, in the large bunch that could go toe-to-toe with a guy. But the vast majority of men are stronger, faster, have better endurances, have longer limbs, have more muscle mass, have more stamina. Their chemical makeup, the way that their testosterone, pumps through their body. It's just there's no way to compare men and women in terms of athletics. And I think it's also a good idea to bring up the example from a few years ago in 2017 when the boys under 15 squad from Dallas had a scrimmage against the women's national team and beat them 5-2. So this is the best female soccer players on the planet, and they were obliterated by 15-year-old boys. I mean, what does that say? It's just the way it goes.
I mean, you're talking about kids who can't drive.
Right.
Yeah. They can't get a driver's license.
Yeah, and this isn't the guys, a lot of these 15-year-old boys that we're even talking about right now in the larger conversation. Leah Thomas was not a 15-year-old boy. That was a grown man who found it acceptable. And a lot of people found it acceptable to have her inserted into women's competition and then win a national championship.
Where Leah Thomas was not competing well against the men.
Exactly. A very mediocre
and all of a sudden rose
athlete
to the top
against
of
men.
The ranking.
Exactly.
And Riley Gaines tells the story. It's like she will never forget when they were sitting there with her coach at Kentucky going, who's Leah Thomas? And all of a sudden, who's this pin swimmer?
Oh, I know. To have to dig through the yearbooks and the website and say, oh my gosh, this is Leah Thomas.
Yep.
And it really was what was once William Thomas. I mean, to be able to come to that, epiphany, I just can't imagine. I would have been furious. I actually commend Riley for being as poised as she was in those circumstances, because I look back to how I was when I was younger. I mean, even still now, I would be infuriated to realize that all of the hard work and dedication that I had put into my craft didn't matter at that point, because a man was going to enter in and just completely diminish everything I had worked for.
And right around the 50th anniversary of Title IX, this is all going down.
Yeah.
And
we're looking at
Riley was
an amendment to Title IX, perhaps.
Riley was the villain, not the victim.
Oh, yeah. Riley actually told us yesterday that there were several media organizations that she reached out to just wanting to come on and share her side. She wasn't looking to diminish anyone else's viewpoints, but she wanted to have a platform to come on and say, here's how it felt from a firsthand perspective, which she should have that platform, because no one can speak to what's happening like someone who has actually gone through it firsthand. And she was told, there is no room for you to spread your hate here. And that's how a lot of people are viewing it, as her viewpoint is hateful.
Right.
And she's not even given the opportunity to share her feelings, which I think is just so wrong.
And no one's bringing up the fairness of aspect of this. When I say no one, those that matter are overlooking it.
Absolutely.
The vast majority of the public sees the common sense in this.
Yeah, but no one wants to speak up yet. Hopefully that changes.
Yeah.
There's only a few of us who are courageous enough, we'll say.
And Chad's got 2 daughters. He's thinking, like, if this happened to one of my daughters, absolutely not. We're not taking the field there, just based on the fairness of what that is supposed to mean.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of the comments I've been getting for these past few weeks. I've had a lot of men reach out and say, thank you so much. As a girl dad, I am very appreciative that you have a voice to speak up on this. And even, same thing with women. A lot of people understand how detrimental this is to women's sports, women in general. It's a very slippery slope. And, you just have to hope that the common sense is able to shine through sooner or later.
You don't have to take into account where you are with the recency bias of Nashville, okay? But Nashville has specifically been mentioned as a possibility for an expansion franchise in Major League Baseball.
Yes.
I don't think MLB needs to expand immediately. They're going to move into the Las Vegas market through Oakland. The A's are moving there. But, I mean, I like where Major League Baseball is in terms of teams and the number. I'm comfortable with it. I do think Nashville is a perfect fit for that sport and the fan base that could be here. Orlando is already putting their name in the hat. They're proposing a $1.7 billion stadium that they'll build. And Salt Lake City and Montreal have also been mentioned along with Charlotte. I'm curious, your top 2 cities, if they expand by 2, where you would bring MLB to and why?
I have a new city I'd like to throw into the hat,
Okay.
and that would be my hometown of Indianapolis. Come on, why not?
Indy's got to make a bid.
Indy, yes, but here's Indy. I implore you to make the bid. Why not? Indy is, we've seen, has such great sports culture. The fans really stand behind the teams there. I also think that Indy, just in terms of a geographic location, hasn't been represented. It has really no baseball representation except for the Indians, the AAA team, to the Pirates in Indianapolis. And people turn up really well for those games. And not to mention, Indianapolis is a very walkable, easily accessible city. All the hotels, all the restaurants are nearby, all of the different stadiums and arenas. And I imagine the ballpark wouldn't be too far off from there. I think Indianapolis is the perfect home for those who right now have to turn to either the Cincinnati Reds or the Chicago Cubs for their baseball team. Let's go, Indianapolis. What are you waiting for? There we go.
I mean, regionally, that's always ownership-wise, they have tried to block like Nashville getting a team because of the Braves, the Reds, and the Cardinals. Everything's within driving distance, right? Especially Atlanta. So you've got to have all the owners in place, and you have to build that massive stadium in the proposal. By the way, it would be the Orlando Dreamers.
Yeah,
That's
Orlando, I think, is a horrible idea.
Okay.
Orlando's a very transient city. I lived there for 6-7 months when I first went to go work for WWE. That's where they first had me. And it is just, I don't know, it's missing an identity, Orlando. I mean, all it really feels like is it's Disney World, and then you're just living in the surrounding areas. It just doesn't feel like Orlando doesn't feel like anything living there. And it's just already super congested, and I don't think
and the airport's horrible.
It's horrible. The Orlando airport is the best form of birth control I have ever witnessed in my life. Best.
Yeah, or just getting on a plane with a crying baby.
Well, yeah, there you go. That's
well,
one of
that's
the reasons.
Orlando.
Yeah.
That's Orlando. Nashville Stars. Where do you come down on that name?
I like that.
So
I
the
like it. It
Nashville
has a nice ring
Stars,
to it.
that's a throwback to the Negro Leagues from the 40s and 50s. That Nashville Stars played in the Negro League. So
I like it.
That's why they can. Orlando Dreamers is playing into the whole Disney.
Yeah,
aspect.
I like it, and I also Orlando Dreamers is lame.
Just like Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
we don't need any more of that. But I also like Nashville as a geographic location. And I know you talk about, you have to get all the owners on board because of the proximity to other teams that already exist. But
the commissioner's mentioning Nashville,
yeah,
so I think they are.
But Nashville's such a booming metropolis. I mean, it's only getting more and more popular. And you see same thing with the fan bases I talked about in Indianapolis. Same thing about the fans here. They stand behind the teams. They come out strong for the events.
Yes.
Geographically, it just makes sense. You can walk to things easily here. The cost, you don't want places where you feel like you have to shell out so much money too. Like Nashville's reasonably priced to,
You're right too.
get around and
The
accommodations.
stadium needs to be in the downtown footprint.
Yeah.
You're right. Somewhere on the river
Yeah,
would be perfect.
absolutely.
But the Titans are building that dome, and that's going to be 2027 when they open that, and they own 300 acres over there.
Nice.
So that's another.
That's exciting for
negotiation.
Nashville.
Salt Lake City, strong push though from them, and Montreal. That makes sense as well, given the fact that Montreal left and the Expos are no longer there, and you could bring that back.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really have much to say on Montreal because I've never spent so much time there. I've only been there for a few days in total.
So your number one is Indianapolis.
Yeah, I have to, right? I'm an
Number
Indy girl.
two, Nashville.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here we
Let's
go.
bring it. MLB.
And what are yours?
Nashville, I think, is absolutely in my top two. I don't hate the idea of Montreal getting a team back.
Okay.
Don't hate it. Absolutely no to Orlando. Charlotte, non-factor to me. And Salt Lake City,
I just don't see a team being successful there.
They have a larger TV market, though, than like 3 or 4 current teams. It surprised me in Major League Baseball, which is also part of the pitch.
Okay.
Because MLB is going to expand to, not going to have the regional sports networks moving forward, and Major League Baseball is going to take over that aspect and sell it, I think, similar to what NFL's doing.
Okay.
With NFL Plus and Red Zone and other things.
It's the way we're moving.
Yeah. That way, like UFC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Every major sporting organization is moving in that direction.
College basketball, college football, never going to be the same with NIL. Case in point is Hunter Dickinson, transfer from Michigan, who has selected Kansas. That's not a surprise. What is a surprise, though, is the fact, Charlie, that he was like, hey, Kentucky was very high on my list, but he wanted the money guaranteed up front for name, image, likeness.
Show me the money.
And the pay-for-play aspect. All of that's legal as long as it's coming through the collective. And when it comes to the Jayhawks, they put up the best offer. Now, I attended one of the first events for NIL for Spire Sports Group, and they brought in some of the players that they had landed. And Joe Milton was there. He had just transferred from Michigan, so I can tie this into Hunter Dickinson. And I asked him, he was in front of SIDs and members of the athletic department and others.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, why did you choose Knoxville over the other? He's like, they offered me the most. I can make the most here. Straight up in front of everybody. And that's when I knew the landscape of college sports is completely different than it was literally 5 days earlier.
For sure.
Prior to July 1st of 2021. And now you're seeing it where you have a graduate transfer, which means even though he's transferred already, he can transfer again after graduating and play immediately. Went to the highest bidder.
Can you blame him?
No, it's absolutely not. And if I'm a player and I haven't entered the transfer portal, I'm doing that. Even if I'm going to return to the team I'm currently playing for, because then I can open up. I'm a free agent.
Yeah, see what your options are.
I can open up negotiations.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is a lot of players, when they were in high school and dreaming about where do I want to go on to play. There's the legacy programs that come to mind first, and they think also where can I win a championship? Who am I going to be surrounded by? But now there's the additional factor of how much money am I going to make, and can I still achieve the same goals by going to this school than somewhere else and make all this money on top of it, right? I can still stand out as a player, and then I can make all this money and
live the life.
I see nothing wrong with it. And if I was an athlete in college, I'd be doing the same thing.
I'm also stunned about the Kentucky aspect of it, where Calipari and company couldn't guarantee it up front or refused to. Sounds like something Saban would do. Because Saban's always said, hey.
Is that a principle thing?
Saban's always said, you can make as much money as you want, but you've got to earn it when you get here. I'm not going to guarantee the 5-star high school senior or junior, whenever they commit, that he's going to make X amount. He's got to come in here and earn it first.
I wonder how many programs will be able to get away with that. Alabama will be one, I think, because it's Alabama. I mean, there's just...
As long as Saban's there.
Right, exactly. But how many others do you believe have such a strong reputation that people are just dying to go there so much to the point where they would actually sacrifice the dollar amount to be able to say, I play for Alabama?
4 or 5, probably. Arch Manning is not... His family's not letting him accept NIL until he actually starts.
I saw that.
Until he starts.
That's also interesting, but I guess,
It's a typical Manning move.
And also I feel like just knowing that I'm him, I could be like, worst comes to worst, I probably have a nice little nest egg coming my way.
He's not worried at all. Hey, NBA playoffs. Normally, wake me up whenever the conference finals tip off. Not the case this year. Very entertaining series, even in the opening rounds. And now everything from Golden State and LA to New York and Miami, and where our next guest is for Game 3 tonight in Philadelphia as they take on Boston. Steve Ashburner will join us from NBA.com. We'll hit the top headlines across the association next on Hot Mic.
primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up with littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying, even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
Glad you're with us today as we broadcast on this Friday at 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine.
Where's our beer moonshine? It's
Oh,
Friday. Shouldn't we have something coming?
Oh, especially on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, what's going on? Come on.
Well, you said you like wine. You don't like beer.
No, I never said anything about not liking beer.
Oh, okay.
I said I like wine. That doesn't mean I don't like beer or don't like moonshine.
I mean,
Don't get it twisted. Come on.
We'll crank it up then,
Let's do
Charlie.
it.
Charlie Arnault in for Chad Withrow, who returns on Monday. Well, I'll put the order in. I'll put the order in. Steve Ashburner joins us from NBA.com and joins us from Philly in what's been a very entertaining series between the 76ers and the Celtics. Steve, thank you for the time, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Glad to join you, and it is interesting. I'm really looking forward to Game 3 and whatever comes after that, because the first two have been pretty memorable in their own right.
No doubt. And, I mean, really the start of the playoffs have been that way for me. I said earlier, wake me
across
up.
the board.
Wake me up whenever the conference finals begin. That's normally my reaction to the early rounds. Not the case this year.
No, and I think there's a few reasons for that. I mean, I don't know what you think about the play-in round, this artificial thing to determine the 7th and 8th seeds. I think it works for the league. I think it suppresses tanking talk for a few extra teams all season long. I think that it gives us, before we get into what traditionally are some big mismatches, 1 versus 8,
right,
2 versus 7, it gives us some urgency, some 1 and done or 2 and done. And, that sort of whets your appetite. It's a nice appetizer for what's to come. And then, of course, we had teams playing from underneath in the seeding that you wouldn't have expected to see there, whether it's, Miami, Golden State, LeBron's team, so that spiced things up for the early rounds to the point that we've seen upsets. We saw the number 2 seed in the West get upset. We saw the number 1 seed in the East get upset. And so it has been fairly compelling. And this round is right there.
So on that note, because there is so much to talk about in each of the series, Steve, which storyline do you find to be the most intriguing that we're seeing right now?
Well, I have to admit, I'm eager to see whether Denver can prevail over Phoenix. They're off to a great start. All the speculation about Jokic and could he be a 3rd-time MVP, why he should or shouldn't be, whether he deserved those when Denver's record the past 2 years was not all that great. They finally did what they were supposed to do, and they seized the regular season. They had the best record. They got the top seed. I think they're getting better with each round so far and with each playoff game. So I just think seeing Denver, making its way to potentially the first finals appearance in franchise history, that's pretty interesting to me. Now, I don't know how sexy that is compared to LeBron versus Steph.
I know, I was a little surprised you said that, but I respect it.
Yeah. I'm on the inside, and so I want to see a team sort of take its strides and get where it needs to go. Because if Jokic doesn't get beyond this round, for instance, I mean, his star is going to fall some. There's going to be a lot of criticism, and there's already been plenty for that guy. I just think it's an interesting basketball series to see a team coalesce around him, and the role players truly be supportive in how they perform.
Don't know if you agree. I don't think of Denver first off when I think of the teams that I'm tuning in for automatically.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
But do they feel pressure? This is supposed that everybody, for the most part, came back. They've built this roster. They've got the back-to-back MVP before this year. Do they feel the pressure to win it? Because right now they're playing the best. They're up 2-0. All the other series are tied.
I think they should feel pressure at least to get to the finals. I think that this, knock on the door kind of a thing, that sort of window doesn't stay open forever. I think that, they've been talking about having continuity on their side for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and that's longer than most of these NBA teams ever have. So, how long are you going to come back with a pat hand? I think that's a little bit of what we saw with Milwaukee and why they decided to fire their coach is that, are we going to run this movie over again? And I think Denver is approaching that, even though they don't have that peak of a championship yet.
Did they make that move in Milwaukee without Giannis knowing about it?
Are you kidding me? You think they would make a move of that magnitude without the superstar player,
Yes.
at least in form? You think they would?
No,
I don't know.
No, I'm agreeing with you because
okay.
Because after they won the finals, Budenholzer and Giannis were talking about running it back. He signs in Milwaukee. He stays there. That was a major story given what we had seen over the last decade with players leaving and forming super teams. And 2 years later, the coach that he decided to stay and sign with is fired. I just find it really intriguing.
Well, up until they won that championship a couple years back, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with Mike Budenholzer and some of his tactics or lack of tactics when it comes to changing things up, trying different things. Now, I don't think Giannis had his finger on the button of the ejector seat. I think that he was certainly in on the loop. Did he throw himself in front of that, to stop that on Budenholzer's behalf? Obviously not. Just as I think that he'll be consulted on whoever it is that replaces Mike Budenholzer, and he may not be the guy who greenlights the hire, but they're not going to hire somebody that Giannis isn't convinced can be good for that group.
What's up with the back and forth play of Anthony Davis? Can you explain this to me? One game on, next game very passive. And when you start to look at the stat line for him, Steve, it's alarming. He can go from 11 to 40, and it's every other night when he's putting up big numbers. We didn't see that, and the Warriors took this recent game last night, and they've tied the series.
Yeah, well, you know what? I mean, until this playoffs, I guess the big storyline with Anthony Davis and his lack of meeting potential has been about his injuries. And now you've got this with the up and down production when he is actually on the floor. I think they're all sort of different parts to the same issue. It's his body. He seems like he has a college basketball durability in a professional basketball scheduling. And so, if he had several days off prior to that game one in this series, and he put up, magnificent numbers, was, the force behind the Lakers' victory. Not so much. And I covered games in the Memphis series where he was hot and cold. And, that's a tough thing to overcome. And LeBron is not at the point anymore where he can just have everybody climb on his back when Anthony Davis is awful big and carry them. He can't just turn it on like he did maybe, 4, 5, 6 years ago.
And we'll give another player the excuse of having an injury, but Joel Embiid, do you believe that in game 3 he's looking to have a big bounce back game?
Well, I'm sure he would love to, and I'm sure the Sixers are hoping that he will. I think that was behind their decision to play him in game 2. It seemed early. Given what we were told about his progress in recovery, he hadn't done any running just 2 days before that. And so for him to go out there now, he doesn't sprint up and down the floor. He goes from foul line to foul line for the most part. But I think as it turned out afterwards, when they talked about, well, he was going to come back rusty, might as well get the rust off in a game that we can afford to lose. They'd already won the opener in Boston. They got the home court advantage. So tonight you've got the MVP ceremony before tip-off. They would love for, vintage Joel Embiid to be out there. I think if he's a little bit more in timing and rhythm and doesn't re-injure, then that has to be considered a success regardless of the outcome tonight.
How great is it going to be for the league if the Knicks advance and get to the conference final against either Boston or Philly?
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. When you have big markets like that and there's such rivalry in those franchise histories, whether it's the Celtics, Knicks, or the 76ers and Knicks. But I happen to think it's going to be tough. I happen to think that Miami is in control of that series. They're not a great Miami team, but you've got Jimmy Butler coming back, I presume. If not, in the next. By the way, how long of a gap has there been between games in that series? It's like, are we sure that one's not over?
Yeah,
but,
I know. I think the next game's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's the next game.
So we can look forward to it even more. But Butler will be back, and Eric Spoelstra is so good. I mean, look, Tom Thibodeau is a great coach. He can play chess with Eric Spoelstra, but I think that Spoelstra is in charge of that. Miami does what it does so well. The Knicks have more talent, in my view. But with Julius Randle not 100%, Brunson's had some dings, and it's going to be difficult. If that series could go 6 or 7, I'll be happy. But I'm not sure how well the Knicks are going to survive in Miami.
I can only imagine what ticket prices are going to be
Oh, yeah.
because it's Game 3 in Miami this same weekend as the Miami Grand Prix, Formula One. So it's going to be the richest of the richest, all
And
coming.
the Florida
linking down.
Panthers, too,
Exactly.
against Toronto.
There's a lot going on. I bet ticket prices are going to be out of this world.
I'm the last guy to comment. I've been a professional freeloader my whole life.
That's a good place to be in.
Yes.
Mike, I bet that is a tough ticket, but my guess is it's the Warriors and Lakers series that's the toughest ticket to find. And in terms of legacy, Steve Ashburner with us from NBA.com on the OutKick Network. Whose legacy gets a bigger boost from advancing, LeBron or Steph?
I happen to think it would be LeBron. I think that he's the guy who's more into counting rings, and we're more into counting his rings because, that's sort of the, one of the last remaining hilltops in his chase of Michael Jordan. We haven't really put that sort of burden on or expectation on Steph Curry. And he is, last spring, he snuck his way to a 4th ring, and, good for him. And based on the way he played and he's played so far in these playoffs, we're talking about his place among all-time great point guards. But with LeBron, it's all-time greats, period. And that's a higher level. And I think LeBron, who's to say when he'll get this close again? You just can't presume things with his advancing age, even though he, sort of argues against that. And, Anthony Davis, we just talked about him and, how reliable is he with each subsequent year. So I think it's a bigger deal for LeBron if he can get past the Golden State Warriors, that sort of momentum with his Lakers team. And good for them. They remade themselves on the fly this season. We could see him in the finals again, at least.
So if the NBA has it their way, which teams do we see in the finals?
If the NBA has it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, David Stern used to say he wanted Lakers versus Lakers. I think they would settle. No, I think they would settle for Lakers Boston. You'd have two franchises that are tied for all-time championships with 17 apiece. It would be a great storyline for them. It would involve both coasts and probably the 2 more storied franchises in league history. So, I prefer the ones that change it up a little bit. I'd love to see Denver and Phoenix or, whomever. But yeah, for the league's sake, yeah, I think the old familiar green and gold would be the way to go.
Steve, do you think we see John Morant get his act together and actually become? I mean, he's a great player. Does he become one of the greats in the league, or is everything off the court going to play a factor and hold him back throughout his career?
It's an open question. I don't know. Based on what we saw this season, I think he took a couple of steps backward. Obviously, he got called out for it. He said the right things. I was surprised the suspension wasn't longer than it was. And I'm not sure how much you learn when the penalty is not a little more severe. He's getting old. He's growing up. He's getting older, and so you hope that some maturity and an understanding of what he means. Yes, to him and his family, but to his teammates and to the league would dawn on him a little bit more. Memphis was kind of precocious, and that was fun, and they would lipped off. They trash talked, but they didn't back it up. And the last thing they needed was John Morant troubles when they had Steven Adams and Brandon Clark go down. So Dylan Brooks sort of deflected from that, I guess, and Morant's intense spotlight. But yeah, it really is going to hinge on Morant and whether he wants to be a face of the NBA and get the Memphis Grizzlies where they talk about going.
Yep. Were you a part of any of the 2 games where Brooks did not speak to the media?
No, I was in Memphis for the game. I was standing right in front of him when he said the things about LeBron.
Okay.
And I had a little thought bubble in my head while he was talking that, oh, this is a big mistake. You
Not
do not want to
smart.
be doing this. Yeah, I mean, you will be made to pay for this in however many ways, whether it's LeBron in the next game sticking it to you, or as we now see, potentially his status with that team has been, sort of thrown asunder. So, yeah, it was the wrong time, the wrong thing, and just tone deaf to the situation.
Which of these
I
series?
like him as a player.
Well,
but
I think I would want him on my team, right? But not as much as Draymond. Draymond backs it up, and with Brooks, when if you're going to talk the trash, you got to average more than 11 points in the series, and you've got to show up and speak about it. If you don't do that, instead of letting your teammates do that, and that's where I mean, he in large parts, Steve, he embodies what Memphis and Grind City is about. That attitude. And if they move on from him, to me, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I mean, the way it has been put out there, under no circumstances, I mean, that's really bad form. I don't see what's in it for the player, and I don't even see what's in it for the team to be that demonstrative and open about we're not going to resign this guy. I mean, they're sort of kicking him to the curb. Mm-hmm. It's only May. All you have to do is let him go elsewhere in free agency, or just talk about the fact that he's priced himself beyond what you care to spend. Because not only does it hurt them if they lose Dylan Brooks and his 30 minutes a game and his defensive inclinations and skills, but it hurts them for the next free agent they talk to, because that guy says, well, are they going to get fed up with me and burn my butt in public when things don't go well for a few games? So it's not a good approach. It's not a professional approach. And I think the Grizzlies front office or hierarchy, needs to really rethink that one.
Steve Ashburner has been our guest, senior writer at NBA.com. He's in Philadelphia covering 76ers and Celtics, a game that tips off in a little under 3 hours from now. Steve, thank you so much, man,
thank you so much
for the visit. And we'll hopefully catch up soon as the playoffs progress. You mentioned the days in between games. We've got another month left of these playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. If you like it, enjoy it while it's here. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. There's Steve Ashburner there. Great visit there, and plenty of storylines, Charlie.
Lots to talk about. More so than I think we've had in quite a while.
From storylines to the weirdest stories that Davey Hudson can find. He digs these up weekly, and we'll get Charlie's reaction to some strange ones, including Nicolas Cage and a memory from the womb. At least that's what we know.
Great long-term memory then.
Can't wait to know the details of this. That's next on Hot Mic.
One thing you'll notice is every pitcher will do this or this or this, and that's to get moisture for this. Okay, this is rosin, and the rosin bag, if you can probably see this, it's coming out. There's a little dust, right? It's like a little fine powder. Of itself, it's not sticky. Like I have rosin in my hand, it's not sticky. However, the second I do this, when I'm sweating, I make the rosin sticky. That's when I go back to the ball and rub the ball up to give me a little more adhesion between my hand and the ball. Now, here's the thing. If you think about this, if I put a fine powder on my hand and then I make that powder wet that makes it sticky, any dirt that I come in contact with is going to stick to my hand. All right. So what you're going to see over the course of a couple innings will be my hand will start to darken because it might look like a substance, but it's not. It's just sticky rosin that has dirt in it. Now, I was a guy, so here's the thing. I threw a split finger fastball, right? I did not want the ball to stick to my fingers ever. So I didn't want rosin in between my fingers. So I would wash the insides of my fingers between innings with alcohol if it got too sticky. However, there are other guys that throw sinkers, certain breaking balls, who will want the ball to be extra, extra sticky, and they'll just let their hand muddy up. Now, the umpires can certainly say, hey, listen, you got to wash it off. That's fine. But they have to acknowledge that just washing it off isn't going to change the fact that it's sticky, because you go back to the rosin, you have more moisture, it gets stickier. Your hand's going to look dark no matter what. right? And if you touch your hat all the time, you'll see that Major League Baseball players' hats a lot of times will get dark under the brim or dark at the cap. Also, guys like Gaylord Perry that used to cheat, they would use Vaseline on the inside of their caps. They would use Vaseline on the inside of their bottom lower lip because it stayed there. And you see guys that used to do this a lot. That was what they were doing, and then they'd lick their hands. Anyway, so your hand's going to be, so Max's hand was clearly in a non-agreeable state to the umpires. He went back. I'm sure he watched it. But he came back, and you could see the way he was arguing. He didn't do, in his mind, he didn't do it. He followed their orders. He did what they said to do. And this ambiguous rule needs to be fixed and changed. Rosin, I don't know how you do that, but the umpires are put in a really bad situation now, once again, because they're not given a set rules of engagement. And anytime you give somebody the ability to engage without rules defined, you have massive, massive problems.
White Sox pitcher Louis Giolito left Tuesday's game versus the Phillies after 6 innings with a no-hitter. He had thrown 102 pitches, but they shut him down. The no-hitter was broken up by the relievers. I can't imagine. I think I know what you're going to say, but any chance you get off the hill with a no-hitter after 6?
So whoever's back at the control center with the curse button, be ready. There's no chance. None that I come out of the game. And to the point where if you told me I was coming out, I would still go out to the mound and force you to have all 3 of us standing on the mound at some point. No chance. And when I played, that probably wouldn't have happened. It's a different game now. There are and guys being okay with it, I think, is an enormous red flag to how these guys are being raised in the minor leagues. Yes, you respect your manager and your coach, but at some point you earn the right to help coach yourself if you're responsible and your coach trusts you and stuff like that. And no, none, absolutely none.
Sixth and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Charlie Arnault in studio, guest hosting today. And
yes.
You are about to witness one of the fastest growing segments of the show. It's called Let's Get Weird with Davey Hudson.
This is perfect. I feel like this is tailored for what I'm all about.
Get to it.
Let's get weird. Let's get weird. Weird. Get weird. Weird. Get weird.
I don't think this will be what you're all about, but okay, we'll see.
Don't.
We'll see.
You don't know me.
I don't want to judge.
You don't know me.
I don't wanna judge.
You've only had 1.5 shows
About
with
to
me.
find out.
Charlie, we'll ease into this. I kind of like taking it slow and steady to start.
little
We're going to
dip
start
into
off
the
with one of my
kiddie
favorites, Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is back in the news. Why? Well, because he went on Stephen Colbert's show, and when talking about his earliest memory, he recalls being inside the womb. Now, I bring that up. I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on when you remember the first time you remember just anything from your childhood. It's also just a great opportunity for me to push Nicolas Cage, who I honor every single day. I mean, if you look at this photo, I just stole this straight off my dating profile. Make sure the guy gets his praise where it can come from.
How's that working out on the profile?
Seen better days. So,
Are you getting a lot of swipes?
So is he.
Affirmative swipes using such
Oh,
photos.
he's swiping a lot.
Some good, some bad.
Okay. I remember the days of swiping. That's for another day.
Total BS on remembering the womb, okay? I think we all agree there. But I know people, Charlie, who remember being like a year and a half, 2 years old, and they swear by it. I don't remember anything. Oh, you do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I actually was just, it's funny that we're bringing this up right now because I was just having this conversation with my mom a few days ago.
Okay.
I can recall specifically, so we moved into a new home when I was 3 years old. And then I lived there through the rest of my childhood, through high school, and then I went away for college. I can recall the condo that we lived in leading up to the move when I was 3 years old. And I specifically, I told her, I was like, you would walk in the door, turn to the right, there's this, go straight, there's this. And I laid out the entire condo for her. She was like, you're serious? And I was like, I remember every single thing. I even remember being in the kitchen and like getting in the Lazy Susan and like spinning myself around when I was a tiny little baby.
I
swear.
I'm born
So
in
I-
'84. I don't remember anything until 1988, 89. Somewhere in there.
Well, your memory is just, we got to sharpen it up.
My first
Maybe we
memory
should
is
give
my
you
grandmother.
some psychedelic drugs and it'll take you back to your youth.
Maybe I'll do the Aaron Rodgers treatment. Is his memory great? I don't know.
don't know.
My grandmother, she was 55, and she would be 5'5" is 55. That's all I remember. That's my first memory recall. And I'm a proponent of not throwing massive parties for kids until they're going to remember the fact that you threw them a massive party themed around spending a ton of money for it. You're not taking your kid to Disney. I don't have kids. You're not taking your kid to Disney unless they're going to remember it. And I think far too many parents go to Disney for themselves and they bring the kids
Oh,
along.
absolutely. And it's also for the dressing of the kids. You know, they put them in designer duds. You know, you see kids wearing Gucci or even not even something up to that level. But things that just cost way too much for a baby to grow out of in a
Yeah.
matter of weeks. But it's again, it's for the parents, right? They want to have
Yeah.
the photos. They want to show you off to their friends. And but being in the womb, you know, as much as I like to say my memory is fantastic, not womb-like. Although I feel like this corner with the red light, you know, in the bit of darkness, that could be reminiscent of the womb.
Or hell.
I was 3, and I remember an Amish convoy going by, and I remember thinking then, that even seems stupid to me now. But moving along, so with that being said, there are only 2 things that I can't stand in this world, all right? And that's people being intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch. So,
Well done.
with that said, my next story, we're going out to the Netherlands. We got a guy who has this number. We don't have an exact figure on it, but he is a sperm donor that allegedly has over 500 kids. But a court in the Netherlands has just ruled that if he donates again, he will be fined $110,000. Now, this guy's name.
What has he made off of donating his sperm 500 different times? And I'm sure there's some twins in there. So, I mean, don't you get paid for this?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why he does it.
There was
But
He probably
if he
doesn't
does it
even have a
again, it's
job.
$110K. Like, is he getting? Has he made more than $110K off of this?
I honestly, they didn't give me any of the figures of what he made off of this. The guy's name is Jonathan Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. It's actually Jonathan Jacob Mayer. I don't exactly speak Dutch, so I
Look
don't
at
know
this
the
guy.
pronunciation. He's 41. I mean, I knew it was Dutch. Like, there's a windmill in the background just as soon as you see it. But yeah, the court ruled that he couldn't donate anymore because over fear of pretty
The whole
much just,
country being his
well,
offspring?
it's incestuous type relationships, and a lot of these people you don't know that you're related to them. So there's like this guy's just got like 500 kids in the general area, so they had to kind of step in on this one, and that's where we're at.
I think we should keep a close eye on the paths that his offspring take because I'm sure that
Yeah.
there will be some incest
It's like the royal family after
somewhere
this.
in there, and
Yeah.
that would be rather interesting.
And this guy is who?
This is
I mean,
him.
do you see a photo of this dude whenever you You know, it's
No, I think
the
it's-
sample's given.
I think it's
I mean,
anonymous.
I've just never heard of having to pay $110,000
you
for
get.
beating off, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Coming up, well, Charles Barkley, I'm sure, has gone down the path of discussing whatever Davey just said, but he's probably done it inside the NBA. Who knows? But he's doing something even more disgusting. We'll tell you what that is. Plus, Jalen Rose is running his mouth again.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here on this Friday edition. Another fast-paced show. Charlie Arnault, guest hosting today for Chad. Hope he's enjoying the trip to NYC. Maybe he'll stick around. Oh, he will be there for the weekend. You should invite him to Newark.
You know, I
sure-
got 2
I
tickets.
can guarantee
His name
he's
is
never
not
been.
on one of them, unfortunately.
Well, I cannot wait to. I've never been to the UFC pay-per-view.
Okay.
Fight nights only. I've got to get out to Vegas for one of the big fights.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's
Got
there's
to.
there's a lot of good ones coming up this year. So
So, plenty of headlines to hit. We've got that. We've got Gun Show. Mike Gunzelman from OutKick.com will join us in studio here at 6th and Peabody. That's coming up in about 20 minutes as we get you to the weekend. And he's covering the Taylor Swift concert
lucky
in
him.
town, I guess.
So what? If you're covering the Taylor Swift concert, do you get? Is that a press pass situation?
I think so.
Oh, that is sweet. That is
think
the
so.
ultimate hookup.
I saw Guns randomly at the Ryman because Bush was playing.
Okay, what's the Ryman?
Ryman Auditorium.
Oh, that's here. Okay.
That's what I recommended. You need to go
Oh,
pop
yes,
in and
that's
see
right.
the history
That's
of this.
right.
But Gavin Rossdale is like, wherever he was sitting, I think on purpose, Rossdale's going right by there so he can, tweet and take the video and photo of everything as he crowd surfs. And of course, he's got the best seat in the house. So I'm curious where he'll be sitting and stationed for Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm right, Davey. He is covering the concert, right? The Taylor Swift show.
That's a great assignment.
Yeah, the 3-day, craziness that will ensue over at Nissan
He's not going
Stadium.
to all 3 days, is he?
I doubt it. Well, I mean,
He
maybe.
could though. You know what?
Maybe.
If he was a true journalist, he would.
He's got that pull. He has that pull.
We'll find out what he's made of.
Charles Barkley has pull on literally anything. He can discuss any topic and not be canceled.
Right.
Right? And
Lucky him.
We're all for that. But I'm curious, Charlie, where you come down on this, because this is disgusting. He openly admitted this is how he cleans his cell phone, by licking it. And it's on video through TNT and inside the NBA. Seeing that, what comes to mind?
Nothing. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm not here
Nothing.
nothing. I don't find it repulsive. I don't think that it's a tactic you should only use. I think that there's other methods that if you have access to, such as a washcloth, or even, you know what, a lot of times you don't even need any spit on your screen. You just give it a little rub,
Yep.
and that does the trick.
It's also similar to how I would clean my sunglasses.
Yeah, well, you could do the
right
type thing too,
It's
which
kind
is
of the same. It's not the same, but it's
same
kind
effect.
of the same.
Because actually, the spit might create a little bit of a smear also. So
Well-
I actually think he's kind of being maybe a little ineffective. But from a germ perspective, I will just say I am not a germaphobe. I am very certain that an occurrence that happened when I, speaking of memories when you were younger.
Yes.
When I was a kid.
When you were 1.5.
When I was 1.5. When I was probably about 7 years old, I was at the Indiana State Fair, which is one of the greatest places on earth, by the way. I dropped my corn dog on the ground, which, if you've ever been to State Fair of any sort, you know that it's a pretty disgusting place. There's animals walking around. There's people of all sorts. There's a lot of traffic going through. And me realizing I had this perfectly delicious, warm corn dog that I had just dropped. I hadn't even taken a bite out of. I was like, you know what? 4-second rule, 5-second rule, whatever the case is, picked it up, ate it. And I think to this day that is a reason I have maintained such good health. So I can't say a word about Charles Barkley and licking the screen.
I'm not a germaphobe either. I want to preface this. But the iPhone screen is, in fact, more disgusting, more germs.
Then the Indiana State Fair?
Yes, and a toilet seat.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that are more disgusting than a toilet seat, perhaps, right? And
Yeah,
whose
and-
toilet seat are we talking about? Yours? Mine?
I mean, I don't think it matters.
Does it? I think it does.
Well, so money, here are things that are more germs than a toilet. Money, elevator buttons, pillowcases that you haven't washed in over a week.
Oh, that's actually interesting.
Over a week. So think about hotels, just saying. Toothbrushes, that doesn't surprise me. By the way, it's also next to a toilet a lot of times.
Yeah.
A computer keyboard or mouse. And this is the one. Dishcloths or sponges are the most disgusting bacteria-infested thing in your home. Each square inch of a dishcloth or a sponge has 456 times more bacteria than the toilet in your home. That is amazing and disgusting. And guess what? I'll use the same sponge the next time I do.
See, that is where we differ, because I will lick the phone screen. Not that I do, but I would. But dish sponges, I'm not about that life. They smell. There's a smell
awful.
to sponges that even just touching it, it lingers on your fingers, and it repulses me. Another thing that's
Dishwasher only.
What's that?
Dishwasher only. For
Yeah.
me.
Well, also they have the brushes too that you can like easily, and I throw that in the dishwasher when I'm washing my silverware.
Okay.
Something else that's very dirty: grocery carts. They say have fecal matter on them. So
Doesn't everything.
I want to pose this question to all of our listeners and viewers out there. How many of you have come home from the grocery store and you just got a bag of Doritos or tortilla chips? You're ready to crack those up with a jar of salsa, and the first move is not to wash your hands, but to crack open that bag and go to town, right? So think about all the fecal matter you're consuming there.
Yeah, but you're not the germaphobe.
It happens.
You're
I'm not a germaphobe.
And
I'm just saying, all of us who are judging him for licking his phone, we probably are guilty of doing things that equate to just as many germs being consumed.
Yeah, well, rolling the dice.
I
right?
sound like such a scientist here.
Yeah, I mean, anyone can be nowadays.
Yeah, I've heard.
Jalen Rose can be. He won. So, I mean, we are a week removed. Can we not last a week? A week removed, or maybe even not even a week.
Not even a week.
Yeah, not even a week. This week, where President Biden has ended the vaccine mandate.
Thank God.
Right? Yes, which should have been done a long time ago. But Jalen Rose is complaining about COVID right now in the postseason, where he's saying that if Kevin Looney, if Looney has COVID, he shouldn't be playing in the next matchup. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, gone is the era that Jalen Rose played in his own mind, where Jordan is, I mean, legendary performance, most likely hungover, legendary performance with the flu game, right? And that's no problem whatsoever with, in my athletic years ended in high school. I didn't play anything in college other than intramurals. But even if I was sick during intramurals, I'm playing the game. If I'm not in, in the bed.
And the thing with COVID too is a lot of people can attest. There's a few serious cases here and there, but many of them are very attuned to the common cold. You have a little bit of congestion. You might feel a little bit under the weather, maybe a tiny bit fatigued. Not a huge deal. Something most athletes, especially professional athletes, would be able to power through. They would never consider missing a game for such like a tiny bit of, offness, if you will. And also no one's testing for COVID anymore. And we've gotten to the point where if someone does have COVID, no one else is really too concerned anyways. It's just almost like saying, hey, I have a little bit of the cold. Is it okay if I come play in our playoff game tonight? You know what I mean?
I mean, the quote is, we just came off COVID, and I don't wish any of this on his team or his opponents. That from Jalen Rose.
I mean, I was just going to say, he wasn't even saying, like, yeah, he for sure has it. He was just saying there's a chance that Looney has it. And, I mean, you're thinking, like, well, if you're afraid, like, even if you want to, it's just, okay, then make sure that he's negative, which we shouldn't be testing at this point anyway. But if you're Jalen at this point, it was just even the idea that he might have it.
Or just sick in general. Yeah. If he's sick, he may infect others. But
there's a chance I could have COVID right now.
I mean,
how do you feel about that?
I'm fine with it.
Thank you.
I'm fine with it.
All right.
Just like I'm fine using a sponge to wash dishes. You know what I mean?
We're going to change that. We're going to change that. I'm going to buy you a nice dish brush, and we can throw that sponge away.
I only hand wash.
Wow.
What?
Wow.
We have a dishwasher. I refuse to use it.
Why?
Okay.
You think it uses more water?
No, I'd probably the opposite. I actually just find it kind of therapeutic to just sit there and wash the dishes. I don't know.
Do you do the dishes
you
for your roommate?
You are alone on that island.
You do the dishes for your roommate?
No. There is. They will use the dishwasher.
Okay.
One of them I haven't seen in a month. He might be dead. We need to check in on him.
Wow.
But the other thing,
they'll use the dishwasher, but you won't put the dishes in the dishwasher with your roommate's dishes?
No. But here's the thing. I'm weird in this regard. Everything I have is Tupperware, and I have a bowl. So it's just like there's one bowl I have. I always use that, and then there's a skillet where I
use the same cup.
A true bachelor.
I have the same cup that I just wash it and use the same one. I could do. I need like 3 or 4 plates and a cup.
I could throw everything I own in my Camry right now. Like, let's put it like that.
Wow. Men. I don't have any words for that.
I
have no words.
Did you pack in one bag for this trip?
I did. I'm a professional packer because I've been traveling nonstop for 6 years now.
I admire that. I don't know how, women pack way better than men.
Really?
For carry-ons? Absolutely.
That's an interest. I didn't realize. I was always under the impression that it was the opposite.
I mean, it took everything I had to put everything in one bag or check a bag to go to the Super Bowl. And meanwhile, Haley Carania has got everything in a carry-on for the week.
Okay. Well, I was on your team for Super Bowl. I packed 2 big suitcases and a large duffel.
Do you have the odds for the Kentucky Derby? Can you pull those up?
I can get them real quick, yeah.
So there's a trainer that's been suspended right before the Derby because 2 of his horses have recently died, the sudden death.
That's sad.
So Churchill Downs suspended Safi Joseph Jr. He's suspended indefinitely as of yesterday. The sudden death of 2 of his horses. Lord Miles, trained by Joseph, was scratched from the Kentucky Derby. So it prohibits him or any trainer directly or indirectly employed by him from entering horses in races or applying for stall occupancy at Churchill Downs Incorporated racetracks. Sucks.
Yeah, that stinks.
And
have you ever been to the Derby?
Not been to the Derby. I have been to Churchill Downs. It's
Okay.
a blast. Not been to the Derby.
It's fun.
What's your hat game like?
Oh, I had a sweet hat game. Yeah.
You see Brady? You hang out with Brady and Gronk and
No,
Vrabel?
I wasn't on that level at the point in time. I mean,
Edelman.
you know what? I don't even know if I'm on that level now. I feel like I would be smart enough though to maneuver my way into the cool section at this point. Back then, I was just content, hanging with my friends from high school, and because I'm from Indianapolis, so it wasn't such a far off hike to get to the Derby.
I enjoyed it. I still don't understand the trifecta, superfecta, and how to bet all this, but Davey's about to tell us who to bet on.
Ooh, let's go.
Well, the best odds right now at 6-1. This is current on DraftKings. We have South Lawn at 6-1.
Okay.
Right behind him. Botanical. That's the other thing. Are they?
There's a horse named Him.
No.
Oh.
I mean, today you probably
We're
would
doing
get
no
that,
pronouns,
but-
please, for the love of God, no pronouns for the horses.
I mean, do they have? I really don't know this. I probably should, but do we have a mix of male and female horses out there?
Probably.
No.
Okay.
No.
I see. I honestly have no.
No, because
They're all men.
they're going to sire so many future Derby contenders. I mean, they go and the amount that you can make as a trainer or as an owner after you win the Derby for everyone trying to breed with the Derby winner is
no, but we're saying
significant.
can it be a male or a female horse that's in the Derby?
I don't believe so.
So it has to be a what?
Yeah, because they raced
It's a male.
they raced the
Okay.
fillies prior to that, I think. Maybe I'm wrong.
So they're all. So let's just
There's
go.
a chance I'm wrong.
So there's a chance he's wrong, everybody. So right now we are potentially reporting fact, potentially not.
Maybe not.
But let's get to the names because I'm interested.
Yeah, we got Botanical 7-1. I did miss Wet Paint 7-5. Let's see here. If you really want to go for a long shot, we've got at 44-1. And Tell Me Noli's. I don't like that name. I don't understand what it means. The Alice Look at 36-1. Mimi Kikuchi 29-1. I'm not a fan of the names this year. We got Wonder Will 10-1. This is all out of order. This was going through post position, but Darth Vader, I guess if
Darth Vader?
Darth Vader 24-1.
That's a stretch.
I mean, yesterday was May the 4th be with you, so I guess there's a little bit of a tie there.
There's one named Hit Show.
Do you just bet on name?
Yeah, I think name is the way to go. I mean, if you don't really know so much about what you're getting yourself into, I think that's as good of a chance as any, right?
Yeah, let's do a parlay.
Tell me why Hit Show's not winning this year. Give me one good reason.
I can't.
Exactly.
Watch it hit.
I feel like an idiot, guys. I was giving you the odds for the Kentucky Oaks.
So both male and female horses race in the Kentucky Derby. However, only 3 female horses have won the Derby. Those horses, 1915.
So, Davey, you were misinforming us.
1988.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So there you go.
But now you got the odds on the Kentucky Oaks.
Here we
so
go.
You were not going to get that anywhere else. I can guarantee you.
So
that.
Hit Show, I will say, I think right now it looks like it has the best odds at 35-1 in the Kentucky Derby. So you go with the name and the best odds. So there you have it. Hit Show, everybody. Let's go.
Gun Show is coming up. Mike Gunzelman will join us from OutKick.com. great headlines, and we'll dive in as well to some takeaways for me, Charlie, on 3 big programs in the SEC that had high expectations, put players into the league with massive now expectations, but maybe didn't live up to it literally last fall. I'm intrigued by this. That we'll hit that and more with Guns. It's straight ahead on Hot Mic.
Primary complaint is when you let somebody cross the street while you're driving and they purposely take their time when they see that they are waiting for you crossing the street. That is my primary complaint, and it drives me crazy.
My primary complaint is people who talk on speakerphone in public.
People that chew too loud.
Number 1 pet peeve, telemarketers. Number 2 pet peeve, when people don't understand the menu that they're serving. Number 3 pet peeve, when people ask for change but they have no quarters. Number 4 pet peeve, parallel parking.
My primary complaint is I can't just go to a bar and have a nice quiet beer. There's all this live music every freaking where. Like, I'm just trying to go to a bar, relax, have a beer, watch the game, but no, we gotta have these guitar players and these bands. Why can't I just hang out and just relax, have a beer, and watch the Memphis Grizzlies? I mean, is that too much to ask?
I do not appreciate or condone anybody that litters. I think you got to keep your planet clean. It's turning your nose up to everybody that has to clean your up. Quit littering.
My primary complaint would be wobbly tables at restaurants.
Another pet peeve I have is no courtesy flushing. No one believes in that. I believe in it. Thank you. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in. Excuse me. Another pet peeve I have is when people have AirPods in and they're singing louder so everyone can hear what they're not supposed to listen to.
When people eat smelly food on the airplane.
Dishes left in the sink.
My primary complaint is when I'm out to eat with somebody and they bite their fork as they are putting the fork in their mouth to eat.
When people bite their fork and scrape that, and when they're eating dinner, you can hear like it's like nails on a chalkboard. Hell no.
My primary complaint is when people complain about me when I bite my fork.
Those folks who are in the airport talking on their cell phone very loud so everybody else can hear what they're saying even though we really don't care.
My primary complaint are drivers who do not stop on a pedestrian crosswalk. Period.
My last pet peeve is that when people text you, they text you that they're busy, or if you call them, they answer and say they can't talk. Either way, just don't respond. You can't text me, don't text me back. And if you can't answer the phone, don't answer the phone to tell me you can't talk.
6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Happy Cinco de Mayo. This is, Charlie, this is through Old Smoky Moonshine, the Blackberry Margarita.
I can't wait. Cheers.
Cheers. Cinco de Mayo. Your thoughts?
Wow. That is nice. It's got a nice, refreshing crisp to it. Wow, the blackberry shines through. I like it. This is
Not
good.
bad.
It's not bad. I think
You can
I
have
think
one or you can have 12.
We've got a winner here.
I've seen many people carried out of here like Cleopatra after a handful of these
I
bad
can see
boys.
that too because this doesn't even taste like you're drinking alcohol. This is delicious.
Yeah, it's not the harsh white lightning that you were probably expecting. Yeah, they do it right. They do it right.
Not the Everclear that I took shots of as a kid. No.
Everclear is Everclear and Goldschlager, for whatever reason, were very popular in high school. Was it just because it was cheap? I know Everclear was.
Well, Everclear, I think, was also like one of those, I've got Everclear, because it's 100 proof, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
So I think people just wanted to show
Breathe
what they
fire.
were made of.
Yeah.
And then, Goldschlager was just kind of cool because it had the gold flakes in it.
And then Natty Light
And then
was the beer.
Yeah, Natty Light was the beer. It was the beer.
No longer.
And then we got to college, and I think Firefly made a brief appearance.
Okay. And now everyone's wants Fireball, right?
Yeah, Fireball, yeah. Yep.
Again, not my
Not my cup of tea.
not my choice.
No.
That's for sure. Yeehaw, we'll try the Cerveza coming up as well.
Okay.
With Cinco de Mayo being here. Gunzelman will be here, Mike Gunzelman from OutKick.com, in about 10 minutes or so. So we've got some USC students, journalism students, arrested in Jersey after thefts from the NFL draft. So students were seen on video entering an area where they were not credentialed around 1:20 in the morning on Friday. And according to Kansas City police, they held a bag in the talent waiting room. The two men left 5 minutes later with the bag looking fuller, per the police report. NFL reported a 49ers jersey, a Cowboys jersey, and a Vikings jersey were missing. All had the number 1 printed on the back with no player names. Meaning, and that's what they do. They have 4 or 5 different sizes for every team with the number 1. And then within about it takes them about 2 minutes to put the name on the back of the player.
Right, so they have options so that they
For
can,
the
once
photo
they draft
shoot.
the player, they can...
But after that, are they really thinking and I realize they stole them, but are they thinking oh, this is valuable, like Tom Brady's jersey was valuable at the Super Bowl in Atlanta?
Probably not.
No.
But the fact is these were 2 students who were credentialed to be there. They were paid to go by their university. And what kind of universe are you living in where you think that's a good idea to go into an area where you shouldn't be and then steal merchandise? I just find that to be incredibly stupid. And now these kids are probably looking at maybe, expulsion potentially, right? Or at least being kicked out of their programs.
I hope not, though. I really do.
Do you?
I hope they're not kicked out.
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like these days there's just at least they're in school, I guess, and not trying to be TikTok influencers. But I have to imagine there probably was a TikTok filmed in the non-credentialed area that has not seen the light of day, but may have. Because what a stupid thing to do. I don't know. It's hard to stand up for kids like that.
To me, I realize they can use those jerseys again. They're not going to use those jerseys again. It's like the runner-up for the Super Bowl. You lose the Super Bowl. What happened to those shirts? They ship them over.
Right. Yeah, they're donated.
Third world countries. Yeah. To me, this is like stealing one of those shirts.
Could you imagine though? They got caught up at the airport. That's where they got caught by police.
With 2 of the jerseys, right?
Yeah, and
Going back to
they
LA.
had their bag searched. You know what this reminds me of when you watch the drug smuggling shows of people trying to smuggle, and then suddenly, and they think that everything's all good. And next thing you know, they get taken over to the side, and it's in that moment you're like, oh my gosh, my life, it's over. What have I done? These kids probably going through the same thing. Not the same thing as drugs, but gosh, I feel for them a little bit. I imagine that they're going through it right now. Parents are not happy.
The idea, though, that they
School's
track
not
these
happy.
dudes down, flying back to LA in KC, they waited on them and it's hey, we need those jerseys back. And by the way, time for your mugshots over here. Over those 2 jerseys. I don't know. I think it's a little much.
I mean, the NFL is pretty strict, though. I mean,
no doubt.
they take their credential process very seriously. You can't even. They actually have I remember just at Super Bowl this year, when I was still with ESPN, and they said very, very blatantly, do not post pictures of your credentials, because if you do, solid chance. Solid chance. If the NFL finds out you posted your credential, they'll just take it from you, and you're no longer credentialed.
Yeah, but I mean, so the NFL on one hand is trying to do the right thing here by being safe, right?
I just feel like I'm just.
Yeah, have at it.
I know, have at it, but next thing you know, 20 minutes, you're going to have to.
We'll have Colin in here co-hosting in a moment. No, the NFL, on one hand, is like, we're very strict about this. On the other hand, literally, Charlie, the security on the field is getting like $17 an hour, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the last line of protection between someone doing something crazy and the player on the field. Like, that to me is just nuts. Like, the security, when the SEC is thinking about upping the fine or doing something where they take away a future home game in a home-and-home series with an opponent within the conference if your fan base storms the field. But it's like in their videos, like when Alabama loses, it's on the road, they're top 5 team in the country. There's going to be a field storming, and at that point, the security, they're helping people down as they're jumping the railing, so they don't get hurt jumping the rail.
Yeah.
More than getting trampled as they run onto the field. Like as far as security is concerned, there are tons of people who sneak in. I say tons. A story every year of people sneaking in, pretending to be media, and they're just passed through.
Absolutely.
Because the people checking credentials are the same people that are, getting paid a lot less than those in New York making rules.
Yeah, oversights happen. I'm not faulting anyone for that.
I hope these dudes don't.
I think it'll be okay, but I do foresee some type of punishment from their university for sure.
It was a 49ers, Cowboys, and Vikings jersey missing.
Valued at, they say, roughly $1,000. So.
I wonder what else was in that room, though.
It's a good question.
Maybe
we'll find.
Maybe they think that they had more.
Maybe
but all
one
they had
day
was
the
jerseys.
TikTok will be released.
It should have already be out there. That would be the.
Well, if they find if they have nothing to lose, they might just put it all out.
So as far as we mentioned Alabama did not have a wide receiver or defensive back selected in the draft before Brian Branch early in the second round. But it's unusual to see Alabama not have one of those two positions, defensive back being broad, corner or safety, not have one of those two positions drafted, despite the fact that they're putting 10 players into the NFL, and that's tied for the most by any school, along with Georgia. Point being, you had Jermaine Burton, who was a transfer that didn't live up to expectations and didn't live up to the hype of what he was supposed to be. But others didn't either. And I find that to be something to watch going into next season, especially in the secondary, where Alabama's been very good, and they were not nearly as fast in the secondary a year ago, and it was a down year for them. 2 big losses, down year for the Crimson Tide. Not a good weekend last weekend for Kentucky. We had Will Levis with the reality television playing out in front of them,
man.
But just a year removed from having the top hype other than Georgia in the SEC East. Levis falls to the second round. The Titans trade up and draft him. But the story on the opposite end of all the joy that you see walking across the stage with Goodell is Levis sitting back and waiting to not hear his name called whatsoever in the first round. And he packs up, flies back to the East Coast, and is drafted as soon as he walks into the door with all his luggage.
Yeah, what do you think about the fact that a lot of players, I think there was only 17 players that attended this year's draft, and they are seeing that number fall each and every year. What do you think about that? Do you think that players are missing out on a big opportunity? It's a moment that they should be there for in person, or is it make sense that they would want to just stay home because of situations like Will Levis where they want to just keep it a little more private?
I think the vast majority of players now, because the NFL is going to pay for you and a very small number of family members to join you, to be there at the draft. I think more players now are throwing parties either with the family or friends or whatever and they're opting to do that instead of attend the draft, walk the stage.
But I just can't imagine a cooler feeling than being drafted and walking across that stage, having your hand shook with Roger Goodell, and
Yeah, you're
getting
achieving
your
your
jersey. And it just, I don't know. To me, that there's nothing that would match that.
Yeah, but I mean, you're right though. 17 players. So this is a weird year too for them because the agents are the ones that are going to tell them, "Hey, I think you're going to go in this range."
Yes.
And the top 100 this year. I mean, to me, the value in the draft was around 17 or 18, all the way to like pick 50. There wasn't a lot of difference in how teams had those players ranked. So I think there was a lot of uncertainty with agents on, do I want my guy in the green room with what Levis faced? Levis clearly thought, and he said this, he admitted this, hey, I'm not going unless I think I'm a top pick.
And he was what? He was
At the time,
predicted to go
top 10.
Top 10.
Yes.
And there was a point in time when there was even speculation he could be the first quarterback selected.
Yes, and Kuiper had him as the top-rated player on his board.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him for going. But for those that were critical of all the live shots of him, like
I was going to say though, can't the NFL, if they want to entice players to come a little more, because I understand also, I would feel it very uncomfortable if now things are a little more uncertain and you're just trying to relax. You're probably panicking internally and you just want to take the spotlight off yourself a bit. Maybe the NFL just doesn't show. Couldn't there be some type of agreement? Hey, I'll come, but I don't want to be front and center the entire time. Like, please take like 1-2 shots of me. Otherwise, if no one's there,
that's part of the deal, though. Like they put on a TV show. Make no mistake. They don't care about players' feelings here.
What if no players go? What if next year 0 players go? What are they going to show?
They would have live look-ins at the parties, which they also do. I mean, they set up cameras in people's homes. That's what they would do. But, I mean, if you're sitting in the green room and they're putting on the reality show of this, I mean, the ratings were significantly higher this year compared to last year because of quarterbacks.
Right.
And where they were going to go. And then you had Levis fall, and they maintained like 11 million plus throughout the night in an event where the football's not even present.
Yeah.
You know? So the league's doing it right.
Yeah, they know,
even
they
with
know
the
what
drama.
they're doing.
And it's
they like the drama.
And I mean, that's when you attend the draft as a player, you know that this could happen. What happened to Levis also happened to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you've got every possible example of different quarterbacks that face this. And in Levis's case, maybe we haven't seen a drop like him because even Rodgers was selected late in the first round. Mm-hmm. He falls all the way to day 2 and then flies back home to find out he's been drafted by the Tennessee Titans. Mike Gunzelman joins us in studio. The Gun Show back in attendance at 6th and Peabody.
Oh my gosh, I completely missed you walking.
What's
going
on? Just hanging out. Oh, hey, hi, how are you? Welcome aboard, by the way. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah,
so excited to have you.
Great to be
Absolutely crushing it. We're going to the moon. Let's go. Let's go.
Are you covering the Taylor Swift show?
You damn right I am.
Okay.
1, 2, or 3 nights.
How
committed are you?
We'll see if we make it to the third one.
You're covering this glitterified karaoke show, Guns?
It is. It's going to be madness, chaos, all the above.
Okay, so $1,000 seems like to be the cheapest ticket. It's behind the stage, right?
Yeah. Well, it's $1,600 as of now.
Behind the upper deck, behind the stage.
$1,600. You don't even get to see her face.
Yeah.
You're behind at the very top.
But it's about the about the experience, right?
Yeah, what a great experience that is.
$1,600, you can pretty much pay for at least 6 months of rent here, or in Nashville, or 1 month in New York City, where I also live. So, like, depends.
$1,600 will not get you rent in New York City for
2
1
weeks.
month.
Maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Or downtown anymore.
2 weeks for a studio in Manhattan.
The thing is,
we couldn't sleep in this. We couldn't sleep in the studio for $1,600 a month.
True. Yeah, but no, it should be wild. It's I mean, people are you see it out there. Music's playing. People are all
Craziness.
over here. Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be nuts.
So where are you gonna be in the stadium?
So I am. I am in like. I know a guy. I know a guy.
He knows
I know a guy. But we're in the the mezzanines, like the 200s or whatnot. Yeah.
Club level.
I know. Yeah.
No backstage access or anything.
Do you know what she does? Did you see the video of how she gets on stage?
No.
So she gets put, and this is true, like the videos are out there. They actually have like the fans, the Swifties, who are lunatics in the most nicest possible way, but they're crazy. She gets put into almost like a rolling case from
like the Pope.
Like but in like no, but like a all blacked out, like almost so it's like so they don't know. Like say like all the equipment, she gets put into one of those and gets rolled up. So
Oh.
anybody watching doesn't know which one she's in, and immediately gets out of the thing and
So
just walks on stage.
she's in a case like Colin's producing from right
yeah,
now.
like just a giant box because she can't be seen in public because they'll just go nuts. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, did you see
must be nice.
the other? I don't know which celebrity it was, but at the Met Gala, like leading up to the other day, they had one of the celebrities wrapped up in almost like a bubble wrap type of ordeal, and they had people carrying it and putting it into a van, so you had no idea who it was.
Who did it end up being? Do we
I
know?
actually don't know, but I saw a clip of it and I thought it was fascinating. I was like, that's actually a phenomenal idea.
It's like Lady Gaga and the egg.
Can we talk about the Met, by the way? So I'm from New York, Jersey, the whole Tri-State area thing. I hate the Met Gala. Like, are you a fan of it? Like, I kind of hate those people, but like, I just don't understand. Like, oh, let's all get together. And
Whatever.
yeah.
You'll be credentialed for it next year, guys.
Yeah, and once you are, he's like, you know what? Second,
what?
second thought, I'm here for the Met Gala.
Because I wasn't there. But it just seems like there's a little bit of we're all going to get together and dine together. Kind of like us here, but on a much cooler level on OutKick.
Yes.
And Hot Mic.
All right. So what are
Slightly
you
smaller
what are you covering specifically with the Taylor Swift show?
I mean,
The craziness of it.
yeah, of course. I mean,
So
people flew in from all over the country, all over the world, and it's going to be just madness.
fascinated by this though. Like the madness is every city she goes to, back to back to back stadium shows. No one on the planet is doing this. No, I don't think there's another artist that can pull this off.
Right.
And I'm fascinated by how she does this 3 hours down the road from doing it literally the night before, and 3 days later she'll be 3 hours up the road where you can, if you don't get tickets to this one, you don't have to pay $1,600. You could possibly pay less, but you can't, and that blows my mind.
I mean, I remember when she single-handedly might take down Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Remember that?
Yes.
That chaotic mess. I
Yes.
covered it a bunch on OutKick. It was, I mean, the fact that they weren't prepared for that. She is the single biggest star in the world right now. I would say her. Harry Styles is up there. Of course, BTS, like I guess, but like the casual person doesn't know who BTS is, but the diehard fans, of course, do, and of course, overseas has a huge following. But like Taylor Swift, which is why she needs to do the Super Bowl. Remember, I was here a couple months ago.
Yep.
She has to do the Super Bowl next year because it's no longer Pepsi. We talked about it.
Yeah.
I truly
She's
believe that she's
Coca-Cola.
going to do it. Yeah, she's
and
got
she
to do
couldn't
the
do
Super
it
Bowl.
because of
She's
Pepsi.
massive.
She's massive, but also remember the Super Bowl, they don't pay the performers at halftime. So she would really, what would her incentive be? It's not like she needs a push. She will just be getting off tour. A lot of what the performers do is use it as kind of a little bit of a boost to make a big announcement or lay the groundwork for something that they have coming up, like Rihanna, for example. I think she's about to go on tour. She had just released a new single recently, her first in quite a while. So I'm not sure Taylor Swift has too much of an incentive to put that extra workload on her when she will just be getting off tour.
I think dominance. I mean,
Yeah.
Dominant, sure, but
she's dominating the world right now. Why would she? I
she
think,
could probably
yeah.
put on her own concert
She
that
might do her
runs
own Super Bowl.
simultaneous with Super Bowl, and she'll get more
Can
views.
you
And have
imagine,
higher
though?
ratings. Oh my God, that's so good.
Can you imagine the Swifties at the Super Bowl? Please, God,
gosh.
no.
You know what though? It would be a great excuse for the parents, the dads. Oh, you know what? Little Monica. Oh, she loves Taylor. We have to go.
I mean, they should pay her. The ratings for her halftime show would be incredible.
Yeah, it would be
compared to what we see on an annual basis, which is the most recent one on Fox is the most watched Super Bowl ever.
Yep.
And in large part, the halftime show brings in a different audience.
Yeah.
Imagine this audience with the clamoring for it.
We have to, next time I'm on, we did our top 5 artists that haven't played the Super Bowl that need to.
Ah.
And Taylor was I put her at number 2 because it is going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. I put number 1 was Billy Joel. I think Billy Joel could be a safe bet. You know what I mean? Like if you want to be safe, you go with Billy Joel. He's up there a little bit. I mean, listen, he's up there, but they've also done like the Who after their prime. They did Paul McCartney tour like after his prime. So they need a safe bet. I did those 2. Garth has never done it.
Right.
I said Oasis. If Oasis was ever going to reunite, it would be for the Super Bowl. And then Foo Fighters, who are now releasing new music. The Foo Fighters, I think, would rock. Because you need more than 2 songs. You need like 5 to 6 range that like people hear on the radio. They're like, I know that one.
Metallica.
You wanted Metallica, yeah.
That and that makes sense too, just based on the odds. But again, the halftime show, I think, is put there now to bring in the other audience that would not otherwise tune in to watch the game.
Right.
And Metallica,
So-
you've got the same audience, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say some of yours might have.
Not Billy Joel. He's right. He's right on the money.
How
with that.
what's one of your favorite artists? Sorry to put you on the spot. Harry
That is
Styles
putting
has
me on the
yeah,
spot.
yeah.
If the Spice Girls would reunite and come play the Super Bowl, that would be fantastic. That's it. That's such an easy answer.
There you go. Spice Girls, you're up.
Love it.
You're
Spice
up
up your life.
Yeah.
Limp Bizkit.
Oh gosh, can you imagine?
Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock.
Can you imagine Fred Durst now? All gray.
All wearing the red hat still.
So, Charlie, where do you come
Baseball
down
hat.
on the story that Guns has at OutKick about they're trying to reduce meat products to
Oh,
save
gosh.
the environment?
Well,
What?
I'm the biggest anti-vegan, vegetarian diet person ever. I think that a lot of people get very confused as to, veganism and vegetarianism is so much healthier. I think if you're eating good cuts of meat and you're not eating, for example, I can go down an entire rabbit hole on the health and diet stuff. Even you look at cheese, like shredded cheese has a material in it to help everything stay, separate from each other in the bag versus a
instead of getting
raw block
compact?
of cheese.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so there's so many different chemicals in different types of food, and when you're just talking about climate change as a way, cutting out dairy and meat as a way to help the climate, it really doesn't make sense. Also because there's also the big debacle right now of all the bees that are losing their lives. It's like the war on the bees because they're being brought in droves and droves of them to help pollinate the almond trees for people that drink almond milk now, who oppose dairy, and it's actually killing populations of bees from all over the world. So there's just a lot of
lunacy. And what's crazy, they don't know what I truly don't believe that they know what they're doing. It's all about this agenda, this drip.
Exactly.
It's act first and then, oh, sorry about the consequences. It's just what we did for the first 3 years. By the way, the WHO, World Health Organization, officially ended the pandemic today, everybody. Congratulations. Literally, I did that story this morning.
Across the globe.
Yeah, across the globe. No more pandemic anymore.
believe?
But think of all the people. And he goes,
That's another reason we should cheers to that.
Were they waiting on Biden?
That's another
cheers.
a
Where's
great
yours?
reason to cheers.
Cheers.
It's over.
In his statement, the head of the WHO, the WHO, goes, it's like, well, now that a lot of people have gone back to normal with their lives, guess what? What are you going to say to all the parents that now have kids with learning disabilities or are really struggling out there? Are they back to normal? You screwed a whole generation of kids that had to do remote learning, and now they're trying to do revisionist history and saying that never happened. We're hearing it from Fauci. We're hearing it with Randy Weingarten, that hack that's the school union president that's claiming, oh, I never said any of that, and then we have all the tapes that you did. That's an example. And the other thing is, oh, everything's back to normal. What about all the small businesses that had to get shut down? What about all the people that went bankrupt? Oh, we're going back to normal? Oh, really? What about that? And that kind of goes into this whole New York City thing. And for the viewers out there, I wrote about it on OutKick. There is an active agenda. They literally are pushing this in the name of climate change and reducing carbon emissions, that they want to now, not carbon emissions in general, that they are going to start limiting the availability of meat and dairy in New York City, and they want to start focusing on a plant-based diet. You don't just do and that's after they talk to these organizations. You don't come out with that in a major press conference and a major PR push unless it's not like you just woke up and said it to somebody on the street. There's an active movement going on that's coming after you. They're going after your gas. I can't have a gas stove in New York City anymore.
Exactly.
What the hell?
This is great. You don't even need it. You don't even need a gas stove to cook your vegetables. It's
mean,
perfect. It's all coming together, it seems.
Shouldn't I get the best filet of my life in New York City?
You would think.
Right?
It's unbelievable.
Actually, the best one is either Texas or Oklahoma for me.
Yeah.
Best filet.
It's a power grab, and if anything, once you're in power, you never want to lose it. And there's such an underlining agenda that I think more people are finding out about. That story did very well. The videos went. I mean, you quote tweeted it. It's crazy because they can always be just like it was oh, but the children, they have to work remotely because of the children. That wasn't for them. If anything, that hurt them. Now it's oh, for your own health. I don't need the mayor of New York City or any of these elitist schmucks telling me about my GD health. Come on, right?
Well, and I mean, if they want to push the health agenda, the way to do it is to mention, like, if you cut down on red meat, you're going to do this, and actually explain that. I'm not buying into it. I'm still going to have the filet when I want to have the filet.
Yeah, but don't sell it on climate change.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
On greenhouse emissions.
It's also not a matter of, oh, you're eating too much red meat. It's all, some people are, oh, you're eating a lot of red meat and you're also not exercising. They're pointing a lot of fingers at what's unhealthy, but it's not just one thing that leads to something being unhealthy. There's probably another element of your lifestyle that also isn't the way it should be, and that's what's causing the red meat to spike your cholesterol.
Are they going to cap how many Crystal Burgers or whatever you can purchase?
They got rid of the super size. You know what I mean? Like, think about that. They've cut down.
I can't get a sack full anymore.
But what it's going to be though is, and it's going to be that public shaming aspect. If you're the person ordering the steak, it's going to the public shaming. Like,
I will never feel shame. I will never feel shame. In fact, I am going the opposite direction. Where now I actively I go to the farmer's market now. I'm like, do you have raw milk? And they're like, no, we're not allowed to sell it. I'm like, well, where do I get it? So I'm like, that's the road I'm going down.
It's funny, but when I tweet the story, everyone was like, I'm ordering chicken wings right now. I'm ordering, what am I going to do, not eat wings? Just because Eric Adams, the mayor, tells me that? But it's part of this thing. One of the organizations that gave him advice and stuff
and also, let's not forget Mayor Eric Adams, former police chief, that one of his big things was, we thought he was going to come in and cut down on crime, and look at New York City right now. It's disgusting.
Yep.
And with no steak.
With no steak.
With no steak. Crime and no steak. How does it get any worse?
Yeah.
Coming up, let's cheers to the weekend, okay? We'll get Guns in on this and the staff as well and Cinco de Mayo.
And the Swifties.
And we'll discuss what we think is going to happen as the top storyline on Monday based on the weekend of what's going to be some playoff action. That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Charlie, I think on Monday we're discussing the Golden State Warriors taking a lead in the series against LA, and then we're also discussing what's going down in Game 4. I may have been way too early predicting the Lakers could just win it all. They're way too inconsistent with Anthony Davis.
Yeah, but the way they have a will to win though right now. There is definitely a fire under them, and I could see them taking this next game for sure.
And Aljamain Sterling is winning at UFC 288.
Aljamain Sterling is certainly winning. Henry Cejudo goes back into retirement.
Damn right.
Yes.
I agree. Let's go on a Friday.
Guns agrees on this Cinco de Mayo. Guns has the cerveza here from Yeehaw Beer. Charlie and I have the blackberry margarita moonshine drink, the 360.
It's delicious.
Cheers to Cinco de Mayo.
Salud.
And
cheers,
to
Guns.
OutKick.
To the weekend, baby. Let's
the
go.
Entire crew. You can
Taylor
cheers
Swift.
as well if you want.
And to T-Swift.
To all the Swifties.
To Tay. We call her Tay.
Tay.
Were you guys always big? Oh, cheers, by the way.
Salud.
You guys always big Cinco de Mayo partiers?
I've had a few good Cinco de Mayos in my day. Yeah.
Sombrero?
We had a Mexican restaurant that was right by my university in Washington, D.C., and it was called Guapo's. Best margaritas I've ever had in my life. They never carded you, and we would just go. I mean, it would just be mayhem.
Yeah. That's called
mayhem.
Broadway.
It was amazing.
So we want you to do that tonight, everybody.
Yeah, have at it. Hey, here's to the weekend. Charlie, welcome to OutKick.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here over the last couple of days.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully Chad makes it back from New York. Travel safe back as well. Guns, always a pleasure, man.
Always a good time.
Have a great weekend. We're back at it across the OutKick Network. We start at 3 o'clock Eastern daily for Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow.